Peace,
Alaikum
brother.
assalam.
We are on. We are live.
All right, y'all. Welcome to another edition of All Politics Local, America's number one political hip-hop radio talk show. Well, listen, y'all know if it is the fourth Friday, y'all know exactly what time it is. It is time for the Disciples. And of course, I'm one of your hosts. My name is Ed Riley. I'm not a member of the Disciples, but of course, I'm here to introduce y'all to them. So I'm gonna throw it off to brother Minister Abdul Haq Muhammad.
Thank you, Brother Ed. Once again, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
My name is Brother Abdul Haq Muhammad. I'm the student minister of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for the Muhammad Mosque of Islam, number 25, which is located here in the city of Newark, New Jersey. Once again, we are deeply grateful and highly honored for this great privilege and pleasure to be with you all again for another week or another segment of the Disciples. I have with me my distinguished co-host, brother. If you don't mind introducing yourself to the people. I know everyone knows you, but I should say reintroducing yourself to the people. Brother Ali?
Yeah, I'm back in. Hey, grace
Okay,
and
there you
peace be
go.
unto you. From God our Father, Lord Jesus Christ. This is Overseer Brian Ali, a.k.a. the Pastor in the Hood, Senior Pastor of Thomas Worship Center, located in the city of Newark, the South Wards. Good evening to everyone.
Yes, sir. I don't think Reverend Roundtree is with us. Is she? Is she with us?
She's not on yet.
Okay. So again, brothers and sisters, all of those in the listening audience, we thank you again for being with us for another segment of the Disciple Show. Brother Ed said he's not a disciple, but I think that Brother Ali, as well as Brother Zaid, would dispute our dear brother. You are honorary. You're honorary
All right.
disciple, Brother Ed.
I receive it. Okay.
You disciplined enough. That's all a
That's
disciple
right. You're
is, one
honorary
who's
disciple,
disciplined.
dear brother. All praises due to Allah. We had an action-packed weekend. So much has gone on nationally as well as internationally. Specifically, we know that this past weekend there was so many parades, marches, rallies as it relates to Juneteenth. I know we had a major one here in the city of Newark, New Jersey, with our dearly beloved brother, friend, revolutionary freedom fighter, liberator, Brother Larry Ham, Brother Zaid, you was there. Brother Ed, you was there. So many guests. He had Ryan Haygood, Mayor Ras Baraka, and so many other guests that he had come speak at the Lincoln Memorial as well as City Hall. Brother Zaid, would you like to, just speak about that, if you could, dear brother? As well as you, Brother Ed, if you could say a few words. Pastor Ali, I didn't see you there. I know Reverend Roundtree was there.
No, I didn't make that. You saw me downtown earlier.
I did see you.
I had
see
already
you
gone
downtown.
in.
That's right, Pastor the Hood. You always in the hood, Brother Ali.
Yes,
I know
sir.
Brother Zaid was there,
That's
of
for
course. He always on the front line. Brother Ed was there. He's always on the front line. Hey, Brother Zaid, Brother Ed said, that the rally was reminiscent of yesteryears.
It was interesting. First, the rally was on Juneteenth, but it was a rally for reparations.
Yes, sir. Yes,
right.
sir.
The People's Organization for Progress does an annual rally for reparations every year. This year, they decided to do it on Juneteenth. Since it fell on the Saturday, and things kind of blew up for Juneteenth because just days before, it had been declared a national holiday. And for folks who don't know what Juneteenth is, June 19, 1865, marks the day that the last remnants of slavery in the state of Texas. Our folks were just notified about that. The Civil War had already been won, and for the most part, we had already won our freedom from slavery as we knew it in that legal construct before then. But our folks in Texas did not know that then, right? And with the rediscovery of that heritage of reclamation in recent years, Juneteenth has become like a national day of jubilation throughout the Black nation in the United States. And we had not exercised or claimed a particular day to associate with the end of slavery or our relationship with slavery. So it had what had been quote an isolated incident in history has since become a national phenomenon for our people. And it's important to appreciate because the country celebrates its national heritage on July 4th. And of course, on July 4th, 1776, we were anything but free.
That's right.
The Declaration of Independence had nothing to do with our ancestors in captivity. So it represents our right to a break from being associated with the hypocrisy of that, and then truly having a day that's dedicated to our freedom. Reparations is the mother of restorative justice. I call it the grandmother of restorative justice, right? And there's a push for reparations that we haven't seen in a while that's gotten some intensity. And for New Jersey, that means trying to push a bill through the state of New Jersey, the state legislative, to determine what reparations should look like based on New Jersey's history with slavery and the residual racism that came from that. You know, we're dealing with this year being the centennial, not just of the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre and destruction of so-called Black Wall Street, but this is the centennial of the birth of racial profiling right here in the state of New Jersey for the whole country, right? So you know, so the whole what does reparations mean for our people now is a heavy thing. As we here gathering for the show tonight, I should let everyone know also that in COBRA's national conference on reparations, and the COBRA is the mother organization of the reparations movement.
And that's what Brother Ron.
Yes, no, Daniels is IBW, right?
IBW, okay.
Yeah, right. But the IBW is a key player in the question for reparations and the supporter of COBRA, right? So that is going on. That began today also, right? So, and what was most interesting about the rally, I must say, is that its participants were considerably younger than I am. I would say from 40 on down, and one of the reasons why that is that it was organized as a co-sponsorship between the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice and the People's Organization for Progress. And the Institute brought in a host of other organizations as co-sponsors, and most of those folks were younger. Even more fascinatingly is that this was a very mixed crowd. I ain't never seen so many white folks at a reparations rally talking about they with it. I had some choice words for them to give them another assignment beyond them rolling with us in the hood, that they need to do some rolling in their own hood on that, with their mothers and their fathers and their uncles and their cousins and their bobs, you know. But that's a part of that push. There's a recognition even within their ranks that the question is a valid question that this country has to come to terms with, and to the language of my beloved brother ministers here, you know, because America has never acknowledged its original sin. So the time has come to do that.
So speaking about reparations and Juneteenth being made or declared a holiday, there's been a lot of mixed feelings and controversy as it relates to that. Black people in America, as you said, Brother Zaire, for a very long time have been petitioning for reparations. We know about HR 40, so many other things that's been done, but it seems like Congress and the United States government continuously overlook or ignores the petitions that are being made, but you come back and make Juneteenth a holiday. So, Brother Ali, speak about that. I know you've been seeing it in the news all over the internet. You know, Black people have been very, you know, boisterous as it relates to Juneteenth being made a holiday. A lot of mixed feelings and controversy surrounding that.
Now that it is a holiday, where do we go from here? I think the challenge is many times we become lackadaisical after we get something, and it becomes not a time for just a rallying cry, but eventually it will come a time for cookouts and just a celebration and everything opposite of what we should be standing for and continue to fight for, along with reparations. And the beauty of it is that it is recognized. They do acknowledge that they did drop the ball, that many of our people were still slaves, did not know it. As Harriet Tubman said, I could have freed more if they had just realized that they were slaves. And so I'm looking forward to the future of it, but I'm looking forward to many more things than just a holiday. I'm looking for our condition to change in America, just beginning with us first, as far as being unified, et cetera, and starting to see each other as we are and becoming one. And if that could become a factor, then we have had something that will give the holiday some unction, so to speak, if we become one.
But Black people, according to what I've read on the internet, it feel like it's a slap in the face. Again, because Black people for a very long time, as I said earlier, have been petitioning for reparations. Again, HR 40, as Brother Zaid talked about, and Cobra, Ron Daniels. So many grassroots movements have been asking or demanding that the United States government give Black people reparations. And then in light of what we just seen happen with the Asian American community, the legislation that have been passed, so Black people are feeling some type of way. Reverend Roundtree, what are your thoughts about that? Juneteenth being made a holiday, but the reparation question has not been answered, or not so much have been answered, but haven't really been adequately acknowledged in terms of America making some real progressive steps in terms of giving Black people reparations outside of just another study, which that's already been done. So many studies have been done as it relates to reparations. America, we don't need no more studies. America, you already know what you have done to us. So we don't need any more studies. Now we need reparations. Is Reverend Roundtree on? I didn't see it.
It looked like she
She
might have
was
fallen. But while she's trying to get herself back on, I want to acknowledge our brother Charles, because we had him on a few weeks ago. Our brother Charles Barron. Charles Barron historically broke some ground, and had a bill pushed through the New York State Assembly that was not a study bill. It was a bill to actually lay out just what should the remedy look like, and it was a community-based thing too. So there is some unprecedented movement on the issue. Right, but to your point, though, what's more important is the point of your question, Abdul Haq. The point is, and I'm leaning on the wisdom of a Black woman by the name of Margaret Francis Bryan Hill, who happened to be my mother. Do not let the white man give you something to keep you from having something else, right? So I think enough of our people see through that, right? And they're not going to go along with Biden's smile and handshake and signing a piece of paper for a day to have hot dogs, because that is not what we ain't honoring our ancestors like that.
Now let me ask, was this something that Black people asked for? I don't recall. I don't recall Black people asking for Juneteenth to be made into a holiday. Was that something that was on the table that we were asking for? Because some of the contention that I'm seeing is that Black people are saying, listen, we didn't ask for this. We're asking for reparations, but that you bypassed that and gave us something that we could do without.
But I think some of the direct descendants of the slaves were asking for it.
For it to be made a holiday.
For it to be made a holiday. The one sister that had been pushing for it year after year after year after year, there was a direct descendant of the slaves from Texas. They had been asking for it. So a small group, but the family members had been pushing for it.
Okay. I did.
And that's why they were at the signing.
Right, and Biden gave the sister the pin, right?
Right.
Okay,
she was the one that was pushing for. She pushed for it. She was one of the main ones that pushed for it.
Okay, Reverend Roundtree, what are your thoughts in reference to Juneteenth being made a holiday and Black people not receiving reparations?
I think that here we go again. Good evening, everyone. Here we go again with distractions. We get so excited about the little gifts that we miss the whole big picture. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not. Listen, I learned about Juneteenth from the Honorable, which is a characteristic of Mary Baraka and Amina Baraka, who was celebrating it long before it was made a state or federal holiday. So knowing your history is so important. So now you're teaching us a little something, giving us a little token, but that does not negate the fact that we still want reparations. You can go back as far as 1941, where there was a woman named Laura Smalley. I believe she was freed from a plantation near Belleville, Texas, remembered in the 1941 interview that her former master had gone to fight in the Civil War and came home without telling his slaves what had happened. Old master didn't tell you, you know they was free. Smalley said at the time. I think now they say they worked within 6 months after that. That means even after they were free, they still worked us, still got the labor. And here we are in 2021 celebrating freedom, but we still not getting what we entitled to. So my thoughts on reparations in Juneteenth, listen, that you can't have one without the other. Now you can't separate them. That's what they're doing, but you can't. And really, we do a lot of talking, my brothers. We do a lot of talking. Matter of fact, we've gotten to the point where that's all we do. We just talk about things, but we gotta, we talk. And the truth is, I love Brother Larry Hammond, Raz Baraka, Mayor Baraka, and even Ali and you, Minister Abdul Haq, because you put action behind your talk. I spoke last night somewhere and I told them my topic was leadership is not a position, it's action. So while we're yet leaders, if we're not taking action, holding people accountable to take action or do something, like why are we still talking about reparations when we know what we're entitled to? Why are we still having this conversation about what we entitled to and what we want? At some point, this conversation is just conversation.
Right.
So
Well,
we're gonna move, brother minister. When you sign a bill for Juneteenth, love it. Thank you. It's a holiday. We get another day not to work. What about all the days we worked that we didn't get paid for that you owe us for?
Right. Hey, a brother by the name of Ralph Wiley once said, he said, "Give me the free labor of one black person for 1 year, I would be a rich man.
Tell him again.
Yes.
Give me the free labor of a dozen black people for 1 year, I would be a very rich man." He said, "Give me the free labor of millions of black people for 250 years, and I would be America."
Yes, sir. Yes, yeah.
Oh.
So
He killed that.
America know what she has done. Black people know what she has done, and more of our people are coming into the knowledge of what America has done. And my take on it was, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan once asked the question. He said, "Are you free, or are you simply a slave without a master?" He said,
Wow.
Or are you simply a slave without a master? Because black people in America have been in bondage to white people for so long that we had a warped perception of what was free. Because freedom to us ultimately meant nearness to white folks. And the closer we were to them, the freer we thought we were. And again, that's why Frederick Douglass said, "You say you have emancipated us, but when you turned us loose, you gave us no acres or no land."
That's right.
He said, "You turned us loose to the sky, to the storm, to the whirlwind. And the worst of all, you turned us loose to our infuriated masters." And matter of fact, President Lyndon Baines Johnson said that. He once said that until justice is blind to color, until education is unaware with race, until opportunity is unconcerned with the color of a man's skin, he said emancipation will always be just a proclamation, but never a fact. So we really have to consider freedom and what it truly means to be free.
Right.
Because our definition and concept of freedom is not God's definition and concept.
That's right.
So the Bible says in the book of Isaiah, the 55th chapter, I believe it is. Help me, Brother Ali. The 9th verse, where God, "My thoughts are not your thoughts.
Your thoughts.
My ways are not
And
your
my
ways.
ways, not your ways.
Even as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my thoughts are higher than your thoughts, and
That's
my
right.
ways than your ways."
That's right.
So there's God's definition of freedom, and then it's the Negro's definition of freedom. And the Negro definition of freedom has always been closeness and nearness to white folks. So we definitely have to redefine and recalibrate our thought process as it relates to what truly is freedom before we can declare that we are free. But, as time goes on and more of our people are becoming more enlightened, we are definitely demanding more from this government, more that's due to us and more that's owed to us. where a few years ago, maybe we would have been in more jubilation about this being a holiday, but black people, now, we got too many holidays, and that's what you see our people saying, that we don't need another holiday. We need our reparations, and we need them
We need our
now.
money.
Yeah, we need, and as
We need our
Malcolm
40 acres and a
said
mule.
that, he said
We need the
reparations.
resources.
Look, he said reparations is more than money, because a fool and his money will soon depart.
That's true,
But
sir.
we also need a transfer of knowledge.
Yes,
We
sir.
need a transfer of knowledge, and we need land, which is the basis of
Land.
freedom and independence and wealth.
Yes,
And we
sir.
talking about New Jersey. We know that in when George Carteret were writing the concessions and agreements, one of the ways that they solicited white people to come to New Jersey was that they gave them between 75 and 150 acres of land for every slave they owned.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look
That's
at
Jersey.
the wealth
Tell it,
gap,
son.
yeah, when you look at the wealth gap between white and black people, particularly in New Jersey, according to the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice, they say that the median net wealth for a white family is $350-something thousand, $100,000, and the median net wealth for a black family is only $6,100. And then they say the individual net wealth for a black resident in New Jersey is only $179
$179.
and $106 for a white resident. But from whence came this tremendous gap is rooted in the inception of this country, and particularly we talking about New Jersey. So white folks are not just rich because they're rich. Again, they were solicited to New Jersey by being given 75 to 150 acres of land for every slave that
Every
they
slave.
owned. So that's tremendous. That's tremendous wealth that white folks in this particular state was given. So we know that
Absolutely.
much need to be done as it relates to reparations in our people, and we just gotta keep fighting. And we can't
Don't
do
stop.
it
We can't stop.
bamboozled. We just
We
can't
can't
do
stop.
it bamboozled.
Minister, you know what? I just want to, I don't want to play down the woman that was actually behind Juneteenth, because she was an activist for 40 years. If you want to know who really fought behind this day becoming a federal holiday, it was Oprah Lee. I think she's currently like 94 years old.
Right,
Um,
right.
and it's a dance she and her ancestors have been waiting, according to an article, for 155 years, 11 months, and 28 days to do so. So we don't want to play down the someone who did want the world to celebrate the day that they were actually supposed to have been free. The slaves were supposed to have been free. So I do want to give this mother.
Yeah, we gave kudos to her. We gave
Yes,
kudos.
the grandmother of Juneteenth.
And you know what? It ultimately becomes a matter of perspective, because
Mhm.
John Henry Clark said, when you start black history from slavery, everything else looks like progress. Malcolm said, if you stick a knife into my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, that's not progress.
That's
He said,
right.
if you pull a knife all the way out, that's still not progress. He said,
Because I'm bleeding.
progress is healing the wound that the blow makes.
Yes.
He said,
Oh my
America
God.
has not pulled
Yes.
the knife out, let alone acknowledge that the wound is there.
Yes.
Progress is a matter of perspective. And when you talk about black people, particularly in America, our perspective a lot of times is warped and is jaded. You understand?
Yes, sir.
And it's diluted because the level of self-hate that we as a people have. So when
Yes,
you
sir.
talk about these idealistic terms like, or concepts like freedom, justice, and equality, because we have been under the foot of our oppressor for so long, then our perception of these particular concepts, they're warped and they're distorted. You understand? Because we've been robbed of the knowledge of our history. And when you don't have a knowledge of your history, then you don't have a proper frame of reference. And whoever robs you of your history, they become your frame of reference, meaning they become those that give you the definitions of what it
Your
means
historian.
to be free. Yeah, what it means to be liberated, what it means to be equal. And their definition on what it means to be equal is not really what it means to be equal. It's based on their perception, their view, their orientation of mind. You understand? So our people at particular junctions in our history and in our sojourn in this country, we wanted things. But when you look at what we wanted, you have to measure it based on the totality of the circumstance, where we were psychologically, where we were mentally, you understand, and where we were socially. But with more knowledge comes more demands. And now that we have more knowledge, we have more information. Now black people are demanding more. See, what you did yesterday is not going to work today, because we're more knowledgeable in terms of who we are and our contributions to this country and what America owes us. And not just what America owes us, but what America has done for other ethnic groups that she have oppressed.
Yes.
What she did for the Jews, what she did for the Japanese, what she did for Europe.
Yes.
With the Marshall Plan. And this is kind of what Ron Daniels was talking about a few years ago in terms of a Marshall Plan for the black community. But when America destroyed Europe, she went and rebuilt Europe. Mm-hmm. But you destroyed black people right here.
Within a matter of a few years.
And you have not restored us yet. So
come on, brother minister.
That's
yes.
what angers and frustrates black people even much more, because we're sitting back. We fought in every war for you. We killed for you. We died for you.
Yes.
And we're sitting here under your foot. We built the country for you. We built your railroad system. We built your streets. I mean, we have been the most loyal people that ever existed. But you still have not taken necessary and progressive steps to repair what you have done. So
that's why the scriptures declare, to whom much is given, much is required. Right. And as we become more educated and more informed, it requires that we be more vigilant about what we deserve, and not just fall back. Go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I always complete that scripture, because it says too much is given, too much is given, much is required. But they always leave out the continuation of that, to those who are committed. That is NIV. That's me. Not me personally. But they leave out the end, because God will not give a bunch of folks something that's not going to be committed to the assignment, to complete the assignment. You are a committed person. Minister Abdul, committed person. Ed Riley, committed person. Mayor Baraka, committed. We committed to the assignments that we're giving, which means we're going to complete it and carry it out. We get a lot of stuff. Everything, just like the scripture says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The truth is, all things ain't for you. It's just all the things that you're supposed to be responsible for. I'm not supposed to be responsible for all the things that Minister Abdul is doing.
Work your lane, work your avenue,
work your block,
work your
and
street.
work all the things that are assigned to you, and stop trying to get in a lane that's not yours. Baba has his lane.
Right. That's why you got to make your calling an election sure.
That's right.
You got to make your calling an election sure, not just a calling. If God has elected you got to be sure.
That's my brother talking.
Many are called, but only few are chosen.
Few chosen.
Yes.
That's right.
Some got sent, and some just got up and went.
Right. Well, look, we're talking about America. We're talking about justice. So we saw that Derek Chauvin was
22 and a half.
22 and a half years.
Well, what are your thoughts on that, Brother Ali? What are your thoughts on
that? I think it's a travesty. He should. If anybody deserves life in prison or the death penalty, he surely does. 22 and a half years, and it's going to be according to the stipulations. And just as they thought he should get parole, get probation and time already served, is a travesty. I think the sentence it's not better than nothing. I think just like I'm appalled by it. He should have got life.
Oh yeah,
without question.
Wow,
should have got life.
Is brother?
We got young brothers getting life for just manslaughter. And here it is, this man get 22 and a half years. How the hell you come to the half?
That's right. Wait a minute, they wanted 12 and a half.
They wanted probation. They wanted probation with time already served.
Well, I think they already gonna give him time served for the 199 days or something like that he did already. They're gonna add that to the 22 and a half years. I believe I read
Where they're
that.
subtracted, yeah.
Yeah, I believe I read that. So, Reverend Roundtree, your thoughts on that?
I have one thought. Not enough. Not enough. You know, for so long, they make examples out of us, minister. Our brothers get stopped with a bag of weed, particular counties. I'm not going to start naming counties. Get thrown on the ground, because their lives, they feel their lives are threatened. This man, I wouldn't care what his lifestyle was. It's a bigger picture than that. It just so happened to be him that we started to recognize that you can't keep doing this to us and getting away with it. They're going to keep on trying. And God knows that not so many people raised so much hell about what happened to this man.
He would have got off.
He would have got off. The lawyer, I thought, was on some drugs with his defense for this man. The things they were saying didn't even make sense to defend this man. Listen, everyone's entitled to be defended. But it was so, I thank God the woman was there with the phone. But she's not the first one that is videotaped. She's not the first one that is videotaped an injustice being done to us. Someone videotaped a young man running and they shot him in the back. Someone videotaped in that same time a 13-year-old with his hands up had dropped the weapon. We don't know the stories before and after. But the point is, if I ain't got nothing in my hand and I'm some distance from you, do I deserve to be shot down in the street? Do I deserve, if I was a prostitute on a corner, living a terrible life, living a life of whatever, do I deserve to have a foot on my neck for 9 minutes? Do I deserve to die that way? Did Jesus deserve to die on a cross? Did he, just like the pastor said the other day, there wasn't no, Pastor Taylor said, wasn't no CCRB. We didn't have it. Now we trying to get this for accountability and at the same time deal with white supremacists and and Lord knows, look, y'all know I ain't the color. I don't play the color game. I'm humanitarian. But it's not right. 22 and a half years. They created this system to take us down, but to protect them.
Well, today, if you watch the trial or you saw some of it, George Floyd's brother, he got up and he asked Derek, what was on your mind? Why did you do this? And I just want to know. And he didn't get an answer. But I would just like to say this again. March 6, 1857, the Dred Scott decision. Chief Justice Roger B. And I say this because this
Slave
is
Master Chief Justice. Make it plain, son.
That he said that the current slaves and their descendants have no rights which any white man is bound to respect. And that has been the philosophy, that has been the idea upon which white people in general, and in particular those in law enforcement, have governed us with. That we don't have any rights which any white man is bound to respect. We're talking about the Emancipation Proclamation. I just want to quote something from Abraham Lincoln. This is what he said. He said, as the Negro is to the white man, he said, so the crocodile is to the Negro. He said, that as the Negro may treat the crocodile as a beast or a reptile, so may the white man treat the Negro as a beast or a reptile.
Yes.
And this is the philosophy upon which white people, particularly in this country, have governed black people with. They see us as subhuman. They see us as not being human beings. They don't see our humanity. They don't feel like they have to respect us. They don't feel like we are due protection under the law. They don't feel like we are due any equal justice. So they handle us like we saw Derek Chauvin handle George Floyd. And this is not anything new. It's just being recorded now more than ever.
Yes, sir.
And even with the body cams, it's not like their level of cruelty or bestiality have decreased. They're doing more. It's like they're going harder now that they know they're being recorded.
Because it's like the recording would vindicate him.
Yeah, so it's like, again, as a people, we really have to study the lessons of history unless we are doomed to repeat them, particularly when it comes to law enforcement in this country. And we know that historically speaking, a legally sanctioned law enforcement system existed in this country before the end of the Civil War. And its express purpose was to protect the interests of the slave master and to control this quote unquote slave population. That is the root upon which the American police system was created and fashioned. So they talk about rotten apples. No, the apples are not rotten. The whole tree is rotten. And you can tell a tree by the fruit that it bears. So we have to start really being honest with ourselves and with the history of this country and these institutions that this country have set up, you know, so. And now, there you go, Brother Ed, because Brother Ed, you being...
Hey, Brother Ed.
Big
I
shot.
was looking for you, Brother Ed, you being in a law.
Oh,
was
I
here.
can take some local.
I was here, brother.
Okay, I didn't see you when it came back
You've
up.
been
but
so quiet, Brother
Yeah.
Ed.
You being a lawyer, Brother Ed, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that if you think about, one of the things I thought about when the sentence came down, I thought about Zaid, and you will appreciate this. I thought about all the years Mumia has been in prison,
Right.
and you compare that to this man having, killed George Floyd in the aggravated factors that went into his sentencing. Although the judge said he took those into consideration and somehow came up with this 22 and a half years, I think that when you talk about the way that he murdered this brother, the cold-bloodedness and in front of children, right? I think that all of those mitigating factors that he said he took into consideration and came up with 22 and a half years, I mean, in my mind, you compare that to the number of years that Mumia has been in prison, and 22 and a half years is nowhere near that amount. And the truth is, he's probably, if he does a large amount of time, he's probably only going to do about 15 years.
Right.
And so after that, he's going to be out and be able to live his life. So obviously, I think that we're talking about two different judicial systems. We got one for Black folks, and we got one for white folks, right?
Right.
That's what I said. Exactly.
And I think that's clear to most Black folks, because I think that if your son or daughter were to get in trouble in America, I think that if they were before a judge, I think that the judge would look at them and do everything he could to give them not only the sink, but he'd look to see if he could give them the cellar as well, right? So that they could never get out of prison.
Right.
So 22 and a half years is really not enough based on the kind of murder that this guy did and the coldness and callousness. And when you think about it, I mean, think about the way he murdered George Floyd, right?
That's right.
His hands in his pockets, he pressing down on the man's neck, right? I think all you had to do was play that to a jury and ask the jury, how many years do you think he should get? And let the jury come up with the number.
Right. I mean, 22 and a half. I mean, you see Black people all over the internet. They're definitely saying it's a travesty. They feel like justice have not been served. Black people are upset. And again, Brother Ed, as you just laid it out, rightfully so. We've seen Black people, Black men and women, all over this country being put under the jail for a small amount of crack, cocaine,
Yep.
weed, or you understand, or being falsely accused, brothers doing 35 and 40 and 50 years, you know, on accusations, flimsy evidence. And here you have a video, a 9-minute video of this man brutally and viciously with his knee on George Floyd's neck, and he get 22 and a half. So black people definitely upset because, again, we know that there are two justice systems, one for them and one for us.
That's it.
Speaking of the justice system, we know that we were in Trenton this past Monday. Myself, Brother Ed, Reverend Roundtree, you came down. Brother Ali, you missed this one. Brother Zaid was there, and we was at the State House, striving to get the New Jersey legislation to give the CCRB subpoena power. But we saw what was done. Brother Ali, you informed me that the bill was pulled. Is that right?
Yes, sir. It didn't go through.
It did not go through.
They pulled the bill.
Brother Zaid, I know you've been a stalwart on this particular topic. What are your thoughts on that, there, brother?
Well, let me say, Law, re-ask the question because I'm going to come at it another way.
Take your time, brother. I know. Take your time.
It's a whole lot we can say.
Well, I will elaborate on this point. You know, being that I served on the CCRB for the last 4 years, I just came off, and because of my colleagues that is still on, I know that they're fighting hard for it, and it's disappointing to them because it's like as I've stated over and over again, you tell me to make a baby, but then you take the sperm away from me, and they still expect me to produce. You know, so how can you tell me to do one thing and what I need is parallel investigation and subpoena power to accomplish that, and you take that away from me?
Can
but
we
you
be
still expect me
transparent
to
about
produce.
it?
Yeah.
Be transparent about it, Pastor Ali. Tell the real truth. Because there
The
are
bottom.
people down there that are so popped up and policed up, they don't want the accountability. Let's tell the real truth. See, that's why
the bottom
sometimes I
line.
have to say, I got to be real careful. Some things it's after hours, so I gather I'm okay. And it doesn't matter because it's really, it's really the truth. Listen, I work with law enforcement. We got good and bad. But why? Why would you not want to count? It could be your family member. Folks get stopped and don't know your uncle, the chief of police. It just hasn't hit your doorstep yet. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of our folks are so policed up. Okay.
No, Reverend.
No, you're right on.
It's the real truth. So rather than do right by the people, you sacrifice. That's why politics, I'm glad God chose me to be a woman of God first and to put me in this position. Because if Louise had to deal with some of this stuff, it would be a whole nother. And God wants us to deal with love and correction and love. And so
But it still want justice and what's right, the truth.
Speak that James
shall set you free.
I said,
and the bottom line is they don't want the accountability. It's the reason why we have a consent decree here. It's the reason why the history of the Newark Police Department is in bad shape, why they had to show up, because if it was all fair and not business as usual in the old boys network, then they wouldn't even be here. The federal wouldn't have no consent decree. They wouldn't say we need to form a CCRB. And it's a travesty to have a CCRB on paper, but you have them sterilized because you don't want accountability.
They have been sterilized from their inception. That's
why they don't deal with
Brother Mayor Rasparaka did what he did in the way.
And we're not going to stop. Just like we got some folks out here that's coming after some folks that we know we ain't gonna stop either. If we don't get to see it, if I don't live to see it, I pray that Minister Abdul Haq gets to see it. But we gonna live, as J.J. Harrison say, to see it happen. Because according to Micah 6:8, if you got any God in you, he has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what the Lord requires of you is to act
he requires
and to love mercy and to walk humbly with God. And these folk ain't walking humbly. They could care less about accountability because they in the pockets. They in the okay. I'm getting ready to start calling out some
Well,
stuff.
listen. Let me say this. Pastor Ali, Reverend Roundtree.
Am I going too far?
Look, no. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us a scripture from the book of, I believe it's Proverbs, and it says that a good name is better than gold.
Come on, Angela.
Well, what is a bad name? Worse.
Lord help.
And I'm saying this, that my perspective on this particular thing was this, that first of all, again, our state capital is named after a former slave master, slave owner, slave owner.
Come on here.
So my view on this is that is the laws and policies that come out of Trenton, are they laced with the same racist idea and philosophy of the man after whom our capital is named? Is this why you won't give us subpoena power? Is this why you won't give us real police reform? Because you are just a reflection of your father.
That's right.
So
that's right, son.
I said, and Trenton, subpoena power is not going to come out of Trenton. And it's not going to come out of Washington, the District of Columbia, who was another slave owner and slave master that owned over 350 slaves. So when we see these policies, this legislation that come out of these places that are named after our former oppressors, we shouldn't be surprised.
That's right.
No.
But we must keep fighting. I'm not saying that we shouldn't keep fighting, because we have to continue to fight to those who oppress us. But I'm just saying, expectation sometimes is premeditated disappointment. And I know that we expect certain things from those that we put in these particular positions. But I think that they're doing what they have always done. We're gonna keep fighting. We definitely gonna keep fighting. We ain't gonna stop fighting, brother. You've been fighting a long time. We've been fighting long. We're gonna keep fighting. But we do have to make an agonizing reappraisal of what must be done moving forward.
I want to thank you, son, also for coming down to Trenton. Right?
And thank you.
We had 2 buses out of Newark, right? We had people come from all over the state, and they saw us coming, and it's the first time that I saw the State House barricaded, right? And they only got limited activity in there anyway, right? But they barricaded the outside of the State House because we was having a rally. Now people rally at the State House all the time, right?
Wait a minute, Larry Ham name was on it, and Mayor Baraka was on the way.
We did it last year. But I said this is really, really silly. But that's not the police. That's the state legislators, right? So there's a young brother who was with the Institute of Social Justice. His name was Yannick Wood. And Yannick put out an op-ed a few months ago and said, it's a year since George Floyd in New Jersey has done nothing on police reform. And we said to these punks in the legislature, and some of them look like us, right, that this is the time to do something. This is your George Floyd moment. What you gonna do? This is it right here, right? And as they saw us coming, they pulled the daggone bill because they were afraid. And not just that bill, but there are several other bills that also are on the table, right?
They were similar. They were similar
on there, right? The Police Transparency Act was on there. They pulled all of them. They saw us coming. But guess what? We coming back, right? If I have anything to do, we're going to come back even deeper. We're going to deepen our ranks. We're gonna keep turning the volume up, and we're not gonna give up. And we do not care who we're gonna embarrass, right? We're
Yes,
not
sir.
gonna, because there's some folks who should have been on our side on this thing that weren't from Newark that need to be called out into account in a minute. And I'm getting ready to turn the volume up on some of them, right? That was outrageous that two folks in the state assembly didn't come out. Not only did they came out with a wishy-washy bill called 3939 that gives the police the right to check the body cameras before they make the statements. You can't make this stuff up, right? Several days after the anniversary of the massacre of the Charleston 9, and of course the point of the Charleston 9 massacre was the assassination of Clementa Pinckney, who led the charge for the call for body cameras in the deep Confederate South, out of South Carolina, and won, right? Something that nobody expected to happen, right? That brother rode that momentum of the killing of that black man that was captured on the videotape by that racist beast and whatnot, and won. Broke ground in the deep South, right? And then our daughter Reese Newsom came and took the daggone Confederate flag down. So we ain't through with you, South Carolina, right? So they see this surge of a fresh new generation of our humanity, right? And Pinckney is young. Pinckney was younger than I am. He was a young man, right?
He was young.
They see this coming forward, and so here the gatekeepers emerge, and we see this stonewalling and all this whatnot, and don't be deceived by partisan politics, because this is the Democratic governor, Democratic Assembly, and the Democratic Senate. Right?
Right.
They're all in cahoots together, and they're all being punky, and they're wrong on this. And we're gonna turn the volume up on this behind, regardless of what party affiliation they get.
Well, let me say this as we got to get into it, but 6:52, we got a few minutes left. But Brother Ed sent myself, Reverend Roundtree, Brother Ali. I guess you could say it was an interview or discussion, a conversation being had by Pastor David Jefferson from Metropolitan Church. He had Roland Martin, several other prominent Christian Baptist ministers, and they were talking about Phil Murphy. Because we talking about the State House and we talking about Trenton, so we might as well stay there. And we know that Pastor Jefferson had written a few op-ed pieces himself, along with Ryan Haygood, Frederica Bay, along with many others. Pastor Jefferson had two. One, you can't do this to black folks. And then he said, Phil Murphy, you have betrayed black folks. Now he talking about in September marching on the State House. Again, he has some prominent members with him. I kind of want to get into that very quickly. It's 6:53. We have a few minutes left. Brother Ali, were you able to watch the conversation and what Jefferson was saying as it relates to Phil Murphy and what he has not done?
We need to bring Jefferson on and do his whole segment on it.
Yeah, and what he is expecting from Murphy and his administration, and the level of betrayal that Jefferson is saying Phil Murphy, along with his administration, has done to black people, particularly in New Jersey. Did you see it?
I'm very familiar with it. My presiding bishop was one of the guests on that town hall.
Who is
Bishop
that?
That's Bishop Joseph Walker III out of Nashville, Tennessee. And then you got Bishop Donald Hilliard, who's a mentor of mine out of Perth Amboy.
Perth Amboy, yeah, good brother.
So he had already done. I think when I look at corporate America, let's diverse for a moment. When I look at corporate America, what have they done for us, whether it's black or white? When I look for politics, what have they done for us? We still arguing for reparations. I think the group that he had together is looking at it from a national perspective, and locally we've marched enough, so to speak. But what are we going to do economically when it comes down? And if the economics, let's say I have this question, if the economics that came down, how would it have benefited us in the hood?
Now that's what Jefferson is saying.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand. I
charge
understand that.
levying against Phil Murphy. That of course you got 94% of the vote, which is, man, record breaking in terms of Democratic governor in New Jersey. We know Ryan Haygood levied the same charge against Phil Murphy, and now
We are the 94%.
and I mean some of the things that Jefferson is saying, he laying it out. He was laying it out, and when you read those particular pieces and articles that Jefferson wrote, again, he's laying it out. He's levying his case against Phil Murphy. To my knowledge, Phil Murphy has not responded yet to what Jefferson said. In one of the articles, Jefferson talked about how Phil Murphy has placated. I believe it's Ron. What's his name? I forget. But again, he's laying it out. He's not just. It's not emotionalism. He has, facts. He has the data, and that's what he was stressing on this particular conversation with Roland Martin. That we must have the data. Our people must have the information. Our people must have the particular and the necessary knowledge that they need to understand what it is that we are asking and what it is that we are saying. So they talking about putting pamphlets together to inform the black men and women of New Jersey. Did you?
And let me put it this way. I think I have nothing against. He's a brother. He's a colleague, Jefferson. But back in the day, we marched on hymns. I remember that.
That's right. And you know
we
what?
marched on hymns.
Don't please, Lord, because I know that I work where I work. I got to be careful what I support. I'm going to support. But let me tell you something real quick. The hood didn't just get here. And these small businesses just didn't start having issues. And these people that are walking around talking about what's going on with our businesses, I'm not saying this isn't a good time to start trying to figure out who has businesses and how we can help them and who hasn't helped them and who should help them. But we got black folk. We talk about South Jersey and the power brokers and all of this. I think the conversation nationally to help our small businesses or help businesses, period, help African Americans, period, is a marvelous thing. These people didn't just start pastoring last week. Pastor Ali didn't just start pastoring last week. He knows the game. He knows all of this. I'm going to always look at the entire picture. I'm not just going to take this portion of this fight, because the truth of the matter is, those we are fighting for, what have they already done? What is your record? We're not even helping our own people. We talking about what this man ain't done.
We got to pull out all the facts.
Well, let me say this. Let me. Hey, brother Ed, because I don't have it in front of me.
Right.
Specifically,
we got 2 minutes, my brother.
Specifically, what Jefferson is talking about. I know a lawsuit, right, has been issued against
African American Investment Group.
Right. So he's talking about the assets.
And since it's some litigation, I don't
want
want
right.
He's talking about the pension funds. Yes, sir.
And what it can produce for black people in New Jersey.
Can I ask you a question before we go further?
Wealth, jobs.
Right, correct. But do you know the history? Minister Abdul, Brother Minister, do you know the history of where this conversation started? Before we have this conversation, let's see who made the first promise. And let's see where it originated from. Because I don't want us coming on here talking about what this conversation took place yesterday. And there's a history behind that. Am I right, Pastor Ali?
Yes,
There's a full picture to this. That's why I'm trying not to say much, because it didn't just start when Murphy got in office.
Right. You should have said it. You should say it. We up here, we listen.
You can read about it. Matter of fact, I'll do a side with you just so we can be clear, because I don't want to start throwing people completely under the train right now, because they're not
the bus, the train.
Okay. So I don't believe in talking about folks, but I will tell you this. I promise you, if you set up a meeting and you want me to address the individual on this, it's okay to come after somebody. Listen, you want the whole pie, I get it. And because you are a lawyer and you're defending these people, I get it. You want to help all the small businesses and the African American get some, I get it. But the truth of the matter is, where was this before Murphy got in office? And that's what you need to find the facts for.
So you saying, Reverend Roundtree, that this is
Who didn't just come about when Murphy got in office?
This should have something that should have been done.
No,
all right, y'all.
That ain't what I'm saying.
We obviously are gonna have to have round two.
This was
Gotta
recreated.
have round two.
Yeah, this conversation started before this.
You're not taking us on.
Ali told me to fall back yesterday because I told him
back, David. Fall back.
I'm gonna tell y'all go get the facts. I'm not against that. My brother. I don't talk against folk. Whatever he's doing, I commend him because he's trying to help the community, but not when you start helping. Tell the whole story. Don't start telling people this falls on Murphy, because there's still some stuff that Murphy did. There's some second chance. If you there's a thing, you can take 80% of something good and 20% of something bad. If you focus on that 20% of something bad, you're going to eventually forget about all the 80% of something good, and it's going to become the focus. So no, we ain't doing that. Not with me, because I'm gonna tell the whole story if you call me out. I'm not going to do it.
We fussing, Jonathan.
And I know. And I understand, and we're definitely going to have you back.
Hey, Jonathan, hold
we're
on.
going to continue this. You got to move on. We got segments. You got an hour. We got a show. We're going to move on.
We got an announcement.
Get you back. We're going to keep. There's never going to be enough time. We got you. I hear you.
But can I say one thing? Just go do your homework. Do your homework. Do some research. Talk to some people.
Absolutely. I know that we're over time right now.
I need to make an announcement.
We are going to. I understand. But that's why we
make an announcement.
But that's why we love you guys so much. In terms of what you do, you always bring that heat and fire throughout this hour, right? So, but we are going to be moving on to our next segment.
Can I make this one announcement, Jonathan, about tomorrow?
Yes.
Tomorrow is our Get Back Together Again event on Chadwick Avenue. The Mayor's Office of Clergy Affairs, Pleasant Grove Baptist Church, Newark Street Academy, those who are doing the work in the community, Newark Housing Authority, having our first event, summer kickoff. Mayor Raz Baraka, of course, in the city of Newark, hosting along with all of us tomorrow between Chadwick Avenue, between West Runyon and West Bigelow, in that vicinity. We're going to have giveaways. We're going to have all types of fun things for the community to do. Our theme for this summer and coming out is getting back together again. And we're excited about this, getting back together again. If you're not doing anything, if you are doing something, come by. We got vaccines, we got testing, we got ShopRite cards, we got food, we got everything. Come on by and join us, each and every one of you, including you, Rhino, including you, Brother Jonathan, and of course, including the best producer, Brother Ed Riley, the best hip-hop.
Yeah, he cut us off today, bro.
We got to. You know, with you, you got to. You can't. You force us to. But you got good conversation. So we are looking forward to. Looking forward to having you back.
We will have part two.
Yes.
We love y'all.
All right, y'all.
Peace and love.
All right,
we love you. We love you.
We love you. We love you too. We love you too. All right. So this is All Politics So Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. And that was the disciples that come here every single month to let us know what's up. Right. We appreciate and love the work that they do and for the city and the advocacy that they bring. We are honored to have our next guest, who is, I always joke around and I say that she's the hardest working legislator in the state, might be in the country. Nothing on any other legislator. This is totally just my opinion on it. But whenever we have Ms. Britnee Timberlake on, she's always telling us about all this like important work that she's pushing through. So I want to thank you so much for coming on. Is the sound good?
Hey, I can hear you, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Welcome, Assemblywoman Timberlake.
How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm well. I'm well. I'm well. We love having you on. We know that you are talking about today principle over politics. I
Yes.
like the way that sounded. Why did you why did you want the theme of this to be principle over politics?
Well, because I believe in it, right? And let me first explain what it means. It means putting people over political games, right? Political deal making and the hustle and bustle that goes on down in Washington, down in Trenton, down at every level of government, whether or not it's a city hall or a county building. It means making sure that we are taking up the principles of the people first, and then doing politics later, right? It has to always be about the public good. That's the reason why I got into this industry of, policy making and writing laws. I always tell you that I feel like it's a superpower, having the ability to write laws. But I never want to lose sight that we have to write laws for the benefit of the people and put their principles and what's important to them first.
Now, there's some legislation that just passed that you like, that you're quite excited about. What is the legislation that just passed that you want to talk about?
Okay, so speaking of principles over politics and the hustle and bustle that goes on in Trenton, there's a saying that there are two things you don't want to watch being made. One is sausage, and the other is how a law gets made. So since the start of the pandemic, I've been working on providing relief for tenants, landlords, and homeowners. I wrote quite a few badass bills that ended up getting merged down, and one of them passed yesterday. The bill, it's going to end the eviction moratorium on August 31st for people who make over 80% of the AMI, area median income. If you make less than that, then you will actually have until the end of this year, November, December.
So so just to be clear, August 31st, if you make more than the, you said, what was it like? What is it?
So 80% of the area median income. So, okay, so the way that housing is done is always tied to area median income. So there's something called the Essex metro area, right? And the AMI in Essex County, average median income, it's just the average, okay, is around $100,000, right? So let's say it's like a family of four that makes around 75 or somewhere along those lines. So that's what the household income is. So for people who make 80% and below, you're going to have longer to stay in the property or let me just say it like this, you have longer to catch up on your rent than someone who is making over 80% of the AMI. Long story short, people, catch up on your rent if you can. The state also has the bill made sure that $500 million is available for rental assistance. Okay. And the rental assistance goes all the way up to people who make 120% of the AMI. So let's just assume, like I told you, Essex County is around 100, so that's like around 120,000 household income. I've been trying to be as proactive as possible about stopping a tsunami of evictions. I want to shout out like all the special interest groups and organizations that really fought alongside of me, in front of me, behind me, around me. I mean, they were just so dope through and through. And that's Ironbound Community Corporation. I know you guys have had Maria on here before. Yes. And Housing and Community Development Network, Fair Share Housing, New Jersey Organizing Project, New Jersey Citizen Action. I mean, it's just, it's so many people that have been trying to work to get this bill to where it's at.
I do want to understand something about it though. Like you talked about the AMI, right? Like, mm-hmm. And is that by county or is it by neighborhood? Is it like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it works by a group of geography, right? And the geography that we fall under in Essex County is called the New Jersey Newark metro area. And that is calculated by the federal government, by HUD, Housing and Urban Development. And they use that as to calculate AMI. And you can Google it. You can Google area median income of Essex County. You'll probably land on one of the HUD pages, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But housing dollars, whenever people are, getting approved for certain vouchers and things, it's usually 9 times out of 10, your income is verified and checked to see if you're income eligible against whatever the area median income is.
Wow. So for Newark, it's like $94,000.
You just Googled it?
Yeah. I did.
Yeah, like I told you, it's around 100. It's around 100,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Just to see what the pandemic is going to do to those numbers. Because historically, the area median income consistently goes up.
Okay, and it's really interesting because I'm thinking about Newark, like in particular, and a lot of people who are in Newark as individuals or even as families aren't necessarily making this 94. Like it's, and in terms of the county, we are actually using the numbers for the outside areas that also apply to Newark, which is great, right?
Yeah.
Like it gives a lot of our residents some breathing room. It
totally does. It totally does. Listen, all bills, you have to make compromises in order to get it done. Honestly speaking, I would have liked to see the eviction protections in place for even up to 120% AMI, because I always tell people those are the damned if you do, damned if you don't population, right? That's the population that hardly ever qualifies for anything, but sometimes needs to qualify for it, right? So, we did what we could. We got until August 31st, but I just want people to be vigilant. You need to be trying to catch up on your rent with your landlord. You should have already have been doing that. Pay them what it is that you can. And also this bill speaks to them not allowing, they're not supposed to charge you late fees. You're not supposed to end up on some kind of tenant blacklist where they blacklist you and they send this list around. Even if you win a court against your landlord, they send it around and encourage other landlords not to rent to you. And they're also not supposed to impact your credit, because whatever you were struggling with during COVID-19 economically, it's not supposed to impact your credit. I think that's cruel. So these are several of the things that I held the line on, and we were fighting against corporate lobbyists.
And so, and just to be clear, that's what is law right now, right? Like, as in, you can't discriminate against somebody based on like right now in the law, if someone is under eviction or was trying to be evicted, they were trying to put that out and they were trying to move somewhere else, they can't actually legally be blacklisted.
That's correct. Well, that's a law as it pertains to this bill. We have some more work to do to make it a official law for the blacklisting. As I've learned with my friends, my advocates, colleagues, they've told me about this blacklist and that it's actually something that we need more legislation around. So stay tuned for that for sure.
No, actually, one of my friends is actually going through that right now. They had a dispute inside of a building in Newark. And they had to get a lawyer. They are moving from that particular place, but they had lots of complaints, and they've literally been blacklisted. When they've tried to find other places, they're qualified for it, but they are being told specifically, they're like, we can't tell you this in writing.
Yeah.
But this is why you've got this check mark on.
Yeah,
right?
no, and it's crazy, right? So it's like the secret list that these tenants basically keep and send around. And hey, Baba, I just saw you. I just figured out how to see the full screen. My computer was stuck on Zoom, and I just minimized it. How are you?
All right, I'm glad to have you. Glad to have you. I've been talking about you.
Thank you.
All good things. All
That's
good
right.
things. Yeah. So listen, we also did the state budget yesterday, right? There's a lot of interesting things going on in politics right now, and I just feel like people need to know. So the Legislative Black Caucus, we know that Senator Rice, like if you follow politics, especially in Essex County, you know that Senator Rice was the chairman of the Legislative Black Caucus down there for us legislators at the state, right? And so he has now passed the baton over to Assemblywoman Sumter.
Yes.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
So what we did is we organized together to get certain things in the budget. And we were able to organize around full restoration to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to make sure that it would stay fully restored. That was something that I and about 2 other legislators did 2 years in a row prior, right? But we made sure, because they were trying to take that money and divert it and use it for other things, because I'm not too sure how much a lot of people understand housing and affordability and how it works, but that money was definitely needed. So I'm glad that we were able to get that back in.
Now, in terms of asking about just that, most people probably don't know what it is and why it's important. And one of the things I really like about you as a legislator is that you're very detail oriented, right? Like minor things, little things that other people might just slip by. You're like, no, this actually impacts people's lives. No, people's livelihood is based on this little rule right here that most people are ignoring.
Yeah, well, you know what it is? It's I often say that I've lived through quite a bit of trials and tribulations myself, and those trials and tribulations I've used to try to legislate, right? Like I know how it feels to lose the roof over your head, okay? I know how it feels to have insurmountable student loan debt, right? I know how it feels to be the little guy who's trying to fight for something that is yours, maybe in the courtroom, but you can't afford an attorney, so the judge rules in a big company's favor, right? Like, I know how all of that stuff feels. So I try to legislate from that place and never get comfortable in the illusion of the ivory tower that elected officials get to go and find refuge in. You know, I like to say amongst the people, because that's who I am. That's what I am, you know?
So what is this? So what was this thing, this little thing that most people don't know about, that you were like, you're trying to get one over? What was it? Why is it so important?
In this bill, Jonathan, there was so much. We only have an hour. In this bill, there was a lot of little things that they were trying to get over on, okay? First of all, they didn't want any protections at all, the corporate lobbyist. And the little thing for me was understanding why. You have to understand everyone's interests whenever you're legislating, if you're going to go down there and negotiate, right? And one thing that became apparent is that corporate landlords stand to make way more money. And to shout out to all you small landlords out there, you know, hey, look, we need our rent. I get it. I understand. And I was fighting for protections for you too. But I'm talking about corporate lobbyists who were really holding this thing up. If it weren't for them, the eviction moratorium probably would have lifted sooner. But they were holding up this bill. So when you think about it, they stand to make way more money after COVID than they ever lost during COVID. So everybody in the state of New Jersey is under some type of rent control, okay? Most municipalities have a law that says, you know, you can only go up each year on someone's rent 2%, 4%, 7%, 6%, whatever it is, right? But that is some form of rent control. It has nothing to do with income. So if you're paying, let's say, $1,500 for, you know, a 3-bedroom apartment wherever it is that you live, and let's say you rented that apartment, you know, 10 years ago, right? And it's only going up in those small increments. Now COVID hits, boom, you can't pay your rent, boom. There's a mass exodus coming from New York City because their apartment rents have been crazy for years, astronomical. Remember the guy who ran for mayor? He said he was with the rent
too high.
Rent is too damn high party.
Yeah.
I liked what that guy was saying, even though he was using it as in a way of you know, using humor to tell the truth. He was right about it. So there's a mass exodus coming from New York City. So now you can't pay that $1,500 a month, but your landlord technically could be getting about $3,500, $4,000 for it anyway. So you know what, Jonathan, I don't want you to catch up. Good luck. You're evicted. Now I'm going to go ahead and rent that apartment to $4,000. So what that would do would change the entire market of the state of New Jersey, and it's going to make New Jersey even more unaffordable than what we know it as today. So that was the little thing And that was the reason why I was fighting so hard for these protections, because it seemed like the corporate lobbyists didn't want any protections at all. And I had to go to bat with all the big wigs in Trenton. And I had to be relentless and let them know that we're not letting up. We're going to keep this fight going. And it's so great whenever you are going to battle and you're not alone. And that's why it was important to have all the advocate support too.
Wow, because you are literally you are going up against a tsunami of lobbyists, right? Like the waves are high, you're on the beach, right? You and your supporters and people who and the people in the community organizations are seeing it coming, because what you're describing is literally a wave of high income renters displacing massive amounts of current New Jersey residents.
That's right.
And making the market one where it no longer exists for people who live here.
That's right. That's right.
That would have brought
That's
about
it in a
a
nutshell.
amount of homelessness. It would have been bad.
Terrible. And it still can be. It still can be. And it's important to mention, again, August 31st, you need to be trying to catch up on your rent. You need to be contacting the state of New Jersey, the Department of Community Affairs, and learning about how you can get the rental relief. You need to be calling up your municipality to say, hey, look, do you have any programs for me available to help me pay this rent? Okay. You should be calling your landlord to try to work out a repayment plan. All right. There does have to be mediation in the court, but sometimes that's also a very interesting process too, to where the tenant doesn't necessarily have the power. And the other thing is that they could do a judgment against you in the court. They could garnish your wages. So you don't want anybody to take anything off the top. If you're anything like me, I don't want anybody taking anything off the top of my money. I need to move my money the way I need to move my money, right? In order to make sure that, I'm making all ends meet. And I believe that's what everybody is trying to do. So you don't want your landlord to have the power to be dipping in and taking money from your paycheck. All right. You want to be able to, take ownership yourself and start making those payments and catch up.
Because what you're really saying, right, is that your legislation didn't avoid the crisis. The legislation gave people who are in the midst of the crisis more tools to fight.
Yeah. And you know what? It's interesting because legislation that I wrote did avoid the crisis, right? But again, we were fighting up against a lot of different people, and this was the best that I could do in the fight. We went all rounds. We didn't get knocked out, and at the end of the day, we won. But we didn't win with a knockout in the first round. If you get the analogy, okay?
Yeah, the Empire is going to strike back.
That's right. That's right. It is going to strike back
on this one. Yeah.
It's the judges have to make the decision, right? And keep it with the boxing analogy. So, and it's coming down. It's coming down to the wire, and we need to know that this legislation is not completely avoiding, but what we're doing is we're lessening the impact, and we're putting safeguards in place to try to help as many people as possible.
People have more tools to fight with, right? Like it really is like when you're in court, what tools do you have? The legislation means that you have more tools to fight with when you are, and because landlords are going to try what they're going to try, right? Like they're going to well, a few weeks ago, my landlord said that I should be out in 30 days when I've been here for like years and years and years, and I had to be like, well, that's illegal, right? Like I had to ask the question: is that a demand or a request? I have to be like, it's a request, and I'm like, I decline, right? But it didn't stop them from pushing or trying.
That's the other thing too. You got to know your rights. So then there was another bill that passed yesterday, and it's called the Navigator Bill, and it's a bill for the Department of Community Affairs to help navigate people through the process of getting the rental assistance and staying and keeping that roof over their head. So here's the thing, I had written a bill prior to, that's not the one that passed. It was called the People's Bill, and it spoke to homeowners as well. Unfortunately, they've still been jamming up the homeowner relief too, because I always say that's important. And landlords often have mortgages, right? So I always thought it was important to tie it all together, because landlords against tenants, tenants aren't against landlords. Like, we all, in order for the housing ecosystem to work, we all have to work together. I've been saying that from the beginning. If a tenant fails, the landlord fails, vice versa. Okay. So, we have to be vigilant too, because New Jersey is still #1 in the country in having the highest foreclosures.
Foreclosure.
Wow.
And that's running right through our community.
Yeah, no, totally. And when you think about it, though,
Essex County and Atlantic City.
Oh yeah. And when you see those statistics, you realize that leading the country in those statistics are our Black and brown communities. So every time I see the statistic nationwide, I'm like, that's a lot of Black wealth that just bled. Like, we're hemorrhaging Black wealth.
Yes.
So the homeowner bill, that now homeowners, do they get any relief in this bill at all? Like, as in, like, the mortgage, like, I know that if people aren't paying rent, that means it's making harder for them, especially the small ones, to pay mortgage. I'm not talking about the big corporate ones, but the small mom and pop, family owned, I own a family house.
Yeah. So there have been landlord assistance as well that's available for the small mom and pop. Unfortunately, the homeowner section was extracted from this bill, and we're trying to get it passed. I was trying to get it done yesterday. Unfortunately, we did not, and it's going to hopefully be done in November. But here's what the homeowners need to do. Homeowners, you should be calling your bank. You should be asking for a mortgage forbearance if you're suffering. Okay. The CARES Act made it so that you can get a certain number of months, but what you should ask your bank to do, I believe, is the most fair kind of mortgage forbearance, because sometimes this stuff can be real confusing. You start seeing documents going back and forth. You start hearing the person on the phone who sounds like they know exactly what they're talking about, when truth be told, they might just be reading a script. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to know how to advocate for yourself. And the mortgage forbearance, you should be saying, unless you can financially pay a lump sum, let's say you need a 90-day mortgage forbearance. That means they're going to hit pause for 90 days. Unless you can pay a lump sum after that 90 days, basically you can give them those 3 months after the forbearance. This is what I believe is the most fair. They should put the money owed on the back end of the mortgage. So let's say if you had a 30-year mortgage and you were going to finish paying your mortgage off July 1, 2021, right? You've lived in the house 30 years. Instead of it being July, it would be August, September, October. You went and finished paying your mortgage off until now, October or November. That would be your last payment. So basically they're tacking it on to the back end of the loan, and it's not impacting your credit. And that's what you should be requesting from your banks.
And that is both fair and manageable, and it will prevent people from going into foreclosure, because they now would hopefully be in a better situation 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when there's no COVID, there's no crisis, and it becomes just part of the mortgage.
That's right.
That's excellent. Now, you wanted to put that in legislation, but right now it's not, and you're just saying, look, you need to ask and advocate for this.
Yeah, no, actually it is legislation. We do have the legislation out there, but it didn't pass yesterday. So it didn't even go up for a vote. We were trying to get it to go on the board. But so we're looking at sometime in November. But I'm just telling people how they can advocate for themselves in the meantime, because we have to keep our wealth. We have to keep it.
Now, do you mind if I break in for a geek moment to ask you a question about process? It really you're saying that there's this bill. What can I ask you?
Of course.
Okay, so you're saying that there's this bill that you want passed. It did not pass yesterday, but you are still fighting for it.
It didn't go up for a vote yesterday. Let me be precise in my language. It's not that it didn't pass. It's not like it went on the board and then it got voted down. So it didn't make it to the board yesterday, because we're still making that sausage. Like I said in the beginning, we're still arguing back and forth about what's fair, what's legal, what's constitutional, and what we should do in order to provide this relief to the homeowners.
So what can you tell me about what you will have to do with other people and with people across the aisle to make this particular bill with homeowners pass? Like, who's against it? Why are they against it? How do you meet those?
No one is against it. There's some who just think that, okay, well, if we do it, it's only going to be for state chartered banks, which is because the CARES Act spoke to the federal banks. The state chartered is only 2%. And I'm like, well, yeah, 2% of the state of New Jersey who are homeowners and have mortgages, that's still a lot of people, even if we help one. So that's been a lot of that gives you a glimpse on the inside of what these negotiations look like and the kind of relief that, I've been fighting for. I think we need to do it anyway.
Okay, so it's real interesting because it's like, there are already things in the federal legislation that will help many homeowners, but there are certain New Jersey homeowners that are left out of it because they're in state chartered banks.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't get any relief from the CARES Act.
Right.
And that's why what you're saying is so important, because they're like, hey, it doesn't matter. Most people have legislation through the federal government, these federally funded banks. But you're like, no, we need people from the state banks, and probably, and I'm just guessing that these state banks, these state chartered banks might be disproportionately Black and brown in those in terms of the higher rate.
Always. It could, definitely. And we know that COVID, while it was no respect of color, it did decimate communities all over, people of every single ethnicity. We know that because Black and brown people have already had systemic racist systems and things stacked up against us, we know that COVID also devastated our community even more so. So, again, we're talking about this kind of relief. That's what we're talking about.
And if we're talking about like banks and banking systems that have also been historically discriminatory and more difficult for Black and brown people to get, loans that are affordable.
No, totally. Baba, what's up, Baba? You quiet, man.
No, I'm quiet now.
I'm not used to this.
Because
hey guys,
you ain't been the problem. That's why.
I'm not used to it. I'm like, is Baba feeling okay? We gotta send somebody over to his house, check his temperature. Give me 10 seconds, gentlemen, okay?
Absolutely. This is why I always enjoy when Assemblywoman Timberlake comes on, because she was always talking about the all
process,
of the stuff that she does and the process by which she does it, right? Like when she's talking about all of the different organizations that have to be behind it. And, we're getting to like, well, what does that look like? What is it, just phone calls? Like, Baba, you're there often when these things are happening.
Yeah, that's in fact, there's talk in circles like mine about, the need to push for reform about the process, because one of the things that happens, and so we talk about the end of a legislative session, right? And a lot of things kind of get done in a very hurried way, and sometimes those things are done so hurried that they're not done in a way that should be publicly transparent. It ain't just the police we got to get on their behinds for transparency. There's some problems in how things are done in the state legislative process. There should be more transparent, right? So this is just letting Britnee lay this stuff out is important, because we were going to pay this. We weren't just turning the volume up Monday on the police and the police unions. We were turning the volume up on the process and on some folks who should have been more forthcoming about what we were up against and trying to block the bills that we were trying to get through.
So, Baba, which bills are you talking about? Get it off your chest, brother.
The police reform bill.
The CCRB bill or the body camera bill?
Well, this was body camera bill. We like, just why did they do that? Oh my God! Well,
so was that
you were pushing for just because I wanted to take the teachable moment from her question. The CCRB bill, the police transparency bill, the George Floyd bill banning chokeholds, the new bill that came up to end qualified immunity, there was a package of bills that we were trying to get through. The big one that got the most attention, of course, was the CCRB bill, right? Because there's uncharted territory trying to get the authority for the CCRB that we need for CCRBs to make a difference.
So
CCRB's been around since 1966 without what we need for them to make the difference that we need, right? But because we're talking about what we're fighting for, CCRBs have become relevant again to what police reform is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And so,
go ahead, Jonathan.
No, I was going to ask you to speak. Like what you're about to say something. So I was like,
So the CCRB bill, I'm in support of CCRB. You know that. I'm on the bill. Shout out to Assemblywoman McKnight. She's been fighting to get it done. So to me, it's all about, if you take the oath of office to protect and serve the community, there should be also some level of community oversight, right? I think that makes perfect sense, always, for that to be the case. What we have to understand is, and I always talk about this because I learned so much going through this process. 2 years ago, we got that independent investigation done in the event someone losing their life during interaction with law enforcement. And Baba was a part of that, and you guys were a great help at getting the word out for sure. Shout out to all our local. And that only passed the assembly by 1 vote.
Wow.
In a Democratic majority, it passed by 1 vote. And then we had to go to the governor and beg for it to be signed into law. And shout out to our governor. I do think he's doing a good job, and I'm a part of his team, and I'm happy to be running with him, and the thing I like about him, and he called today to congratulate us on the rental bill. The thing I like about him is that he is rational, and you can move his dial if you plead your case, right? If you say to him and you make a good business case, you can move his dial. And I think that's great, because sometimes some people in politics, they get so entrenched in, but my friend, or but the guy who I appointed,
it becomes about them.
No matter how much you show them what's right or what's wrong, they still won't necessarily move the needle for you. But I do appreciate that the governor is somebody that you can go to, show him the facts, and he'll make a weighted decision. And that's what he did. He signed the bill. Even though his own appointed attorney general, who, by the way, has since publicly apologized to us, was saying that he didn't want the bill. But that day, Jonathan, when the bill was being passed out of committee, the attorney general was present, as was the PBA president. Okay. And on the record, I had to go and tell them on the record respectfully why they were wrong. We need to understand how much influence the PBA does have in Trenton. And it's not that all officers or law enforcement are bad, not at all, but the culture in law enforcement, which actually has been rooted in racism since the beginning of, the founding of our country, right? We need to make sure that we're attacking the culture, not necessarily attacking law enforcement or the people that wear blue. It's about the culture. It's about changing the policies and things. So now we have the CCRB. Before I jump there, we have George Floyd, right? Which is really interesting to me, because as heinous as it was and as terrible as it was, and God rest his soul, it just is quite perplexing to me how it seems as though the nation heard our cries of Black and brown people. We've been crying out for years, calling, saying foul, they're killing us innocently. When I think of Tamir Rice, that poor baby, 12 years old, what kid didn't play cops and robbers with a toy gun? Can you imagine being gunned down with a real one just for that? It's like in a park. Like, it's insane when you think about the trauma of Sean Bell. Instead of his bride wearing white, she was wearing black the next day, because he was killed after leaving the club from a bachelor party. Like, it's sick. And I met his mother in New York City too. Mm-hmm. So, when we see this and we see, okay, George Floyd has resonated and has elevated our voices, and we're getting justice in as much as you can get justice for someone dying, because you can never bring them back, and that's a terrible thing. Death is infinite. But the bottom line is that the same elected officials who voted against an independent investigation were attending the George Floyd rallies.
How about it?
And for a second, I thought, oh, my colleagues, they know that they were wrong. Oh, my colleagues, they wish that they would have voted for that bill. And I started to think, okay, now we have these other bills that are up and, banning the chokehold. Okay, great, no brainer. We say CCRB and all of a sudden people are on the fence again. And I'm going, well, hold up. What is it about the CCRB that is scaring people the most? Like if we truly believe about equity, if we've truly learned our lesson from George Floyd, if it's really in our heart to create equity, then it makes sense for there to be some type of civilian community oversight.
And you're talking about this in the process of having to get people to see. So where are we? So where are we now? Like you're talking to people directly. What's going on?
So on Monday, we were down there in Trenton, and shout out again, Assemblywoman Angela McKnight. She has been negotiating to get this bill through, and we thought it was going to go up. We caught wind that it wasn't going to go up in the Senate, and therefore it didn't go up in the Assembly. Shout out to Speaker Coughlin. He wants the bill to go up. He wants the bill to go through, but it has to go through both the Assembly and the Senate and then go to the governor's office to be signed by him in order to become law.
Well, that's interesting you said that. That needed to be heard by Speaker Coughlin. Go ahead. Keep going.
Listen, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about my speaker, right? I get to brag on him. He too, the way I describe the governor, he too is that way. If you can prove your business case, he'll go to bat for it. If you can prove the facts and you can show him the reason why this is needed, he will go to bat for it. And, he's been in lockstep with Angela McKnight trying to get to a deal, trying to get it done. And that day on the floor, I remembered that mine had only passed by one vote. And I heard what the conversations and what the sentiment was like. So I said to the sister, I said, look, Angela, we got to get up and we have to make sure we shore up these votes. Let's go around the chambers and let's start talking to our colleagues and make sure that let's count our own votes. Let's not rely on the office or the process to count our votes. Let's go look people in the eye and tell them why this is important, because that's what I had to do for my bill. And had I not done that, it wouldn't have passed. Shout out to Gary Shear, who is an Orthodox Jewish man that I looked in the eye 5 minutes before the vote and said to him, this is about my children. This is about all Black and brown children. Mm-hmm. And this could potentially deter an officer from acting and being a bad actor. And it could save my children's life, other children's life. And that man hit that button green and he voted against, what at the time was, the interest of the PPA. So we have a great relationship. I'm grateful for Assemblyman Gary Shear. He got a street cred on that one.
So you really do, it is really like person to person persuasion, talking to them, making the case.
Oh, 100%. 100%. So Angela McKnight, she was going, we said to her, let's go around. And in going around and in going to talk to different people and our colleagues, that's when we learned that they were going to actually hold the bill and that it wasn't going to be up for a vote. So that's what went down. I need all the advocates to stay strong, continue calling your legislators. Coming back? Yeah.
We're going to deepen our ranks. Oh, yeah. Well, we coming back.
So
continue on that. Continue calling your legislators. In specifics, reach out to the Senate and the Assembly.
Yes.
So really, right now,
hold up a second. I want y'all to hear what she just said. What did you say folks should do, Britnee?
Continue reaching out to your Assembly people and also your senators. Let them know, look, we want this, we need this.
Mm-hmm. And so in the Senate, do you have an idea of how close it was? How many people that it came down to? Why it was what happened?
I don't, Jonathan. I'm not pretending to know how the Senate does what they do, but I do know that I'd like to see quite a few bills move through the Senate.
Okay, so is it that the Senate is just holding up a series of things, and that's something to talk to the state senators to see? Because you really described a very intricate process of person to person, knowing where your votes are, going person to person to persuade.
That's what this is. And that's why it's important to vote for your representatives who can go down there and have the heart to do that, who can go down there and put special interest aside, PBA money that they're going to donate to the campaign, put all that stuff aside and say what is right from wrong. Who's going to go down there with a conscience and deliver the goods for the people, who's going to put principles over politics.
Okay. And which is the running theme, right? Like of this legislation. First, when you were dealing with housing legislation, and now with a lot of the police reform. Now, what did anything actually pass and get signed to law from like police reform? Like, was the George Floyd bill, did that go through the House? I mean, did that go through the Assembly and the Senate? Do we have anything to show?
So
like,
the George Floyd bill is on the federal side. So that's Congress and the Senate down in Washington. And this is what I tell people, you know, we can't be okay as Black people anymore with peanuts, right? We can't be okay that the politician came to the community and they cut a check for our Little League and they sponsored it and, oh, they're so great and we're going to vote for them again. We really need to be knowing where elected officials stand on policy. Enough is enough. Come on, folk. We just celebrated Juneteenth. We all woke now, right? We know that we've been free. You know, we were free 2 years after they told us we was free, right? In history books is what I mean. Like, you know, so we really have to now start using our power differently, okay?
So I was going to say, on Monday, was it just the CCRB that was up in terms of the assembly and in Trenton, or were there other police? There was also the body cameras, like the police union wanted more power or something like what went on?
So listen, let me tell you something. First of all, let me tell you something. The sister who put forward the bill, I have a lot of respect for. All right. She is my friend. Okay. And she is also law enforcement. And I believe that she did this bill from the goodness of her heart, looking at it, because she is not a bad actor in law enforcement. She believes that, hi, baby. My son just came home. She believes that, you know, she doesn't want to have a gotcha moment with any of the police officers. You know, that she wants to make sure that they can review the footage and help to write their report so there won't be a discrepancy. And, you know, that's the essence of the body camera bill. Just wave like this. Put your, say hi. Hi. Okay, good job. So that's what it is, gents.
Okay, so but that did not pass.
That did pass.
Oh, okay, so that became law.
That is law.
Did that pass the assembly? Is it been signed by the governor?
It is likely to be signed by the governor. I'm like the lady in the Folgers commercial. Did you guys see that Folgers commercial where she has the cup and she's like trying to hide her kid on Zoom? It's the greatest thing. It's like all about what we're going through in the pandemic.
Well,
you don't have to hide it.
You don't have to hide it at all, right? You don't have to hide the wonderful child. We'll wave back. I have always said that you are the hardest working legislature or assembly person, right? Like, and this is like some of the stuff you were negotiating while having a kid, right? Like,
yeah,
this is,
I mean, it's important, right? Like, it's for people and for people's families, you know? And I am growing my family. And, you know, that's what we do this for. That's what putting principles over politics is.
So just in terms of this, like, Facebook, right?
Baby, sweetheart, be careful. Say sorry. Okay. Well, I don't want you to be on the camera, honey. Sorry, baby. But you can't be on the camera. Listen, if he ends the session, you know what happened to me.
Right. Absolutely. So
Grandpa's calling you. This is real life, guys. This is the way it goes sometimes. He got away from Grandpa, from Dad, from Big Brother.
Well, let's get Mama's best. So that's all good, right? Like, there's no substitute for Mom.
Yes.
Not at all.
Go see Grandpa. Okay. All right, guys. So listen, we got 10 minutes on the show.
Okay. So yes. So this bill gets passed, and possibly makes it through the Senate, but the one that Black people have been clamoring for does not. Do they get the optics why that makes people mad? Like,
of course.
I'm at the point right now, and I'm going
to you grab him. No, I totally get the optics, right? And it really it's frustrating, right? But this is what I was trying to explain. What I was trying to explain is that's why it's important for us to do and to make sure that we're using our power and our found wokeness to hold legislators to feet to the fire and make sure that we are calling them, making sure that we don't stop until they recognize and they realize that we want what we want, and we're not going to stop until the future of all the children that look like my beautiful son who's right here, is secure and safe.
That's right.
Well, I'm telling you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be calling legislatures. I'm gonna call the governor's office. And here's my stance: if the CCRB doesn't pass it, I'm not voting. I'm not voting Democrat for the governor. I'm voting for somebody else, because if they can pass a police CCRB, they just spit in my face, and I can't vote for a party that spits in my face like that.
So I hear you, Jonathan. I hear you. But one thing I want you to understand is that the governor wants the CCRB bill, and the governor's been calling to make it to his desk. Okay, we have to take a look at the individual legislators who might be holding this up or who don't want it.
Right.
So we might be doing it because here's the other thing, Jonathan.
Now you're talking my language.
Let me be clear. Without Phil Murphy, here, sweetheart. Without Phil Murphy, let's be clear. No Republican governor would not have signed that independent investigation into law. Phil Murphy.
Okay. So you're saying that like, even though you're gonna have the Attorney General do what I wanted to do, that could be okay. Like, as in, because the legislation actually would be the thing that is most long-lasting. But you're saying that with the Attorney General really like that's not on the governor?
What I'm telling you is that the governor can only sign what makes it to his desk. For 16 months, the governor called for my bill, the People's Bill, which was the rental protections, the landlord protections, and the homeowner protections against foreclosure to make it to his desk.
He did do that.
Okay? For 16 months. And unfortunately, I jumped on another bill and tried to work the amendments through as much as I could. We did make it into a version of the People's Bill, okay? And that was the one that was sent to his desk. What I'm telling you is that it comes down to the legislature.
Okay. And it comes down to really the Senate. Because, it seems like you got the Assembly. You've talked to people. You've twisted arms. Stuff was going to pass the Assembly. Am I reading it wrong that the Assembly, you and the other legislators that are there in the Assembly, that have gotten allies and gotten enough allies in the Assembly to pass it in the Assembly? It's the Senate that's like, or not?
Yeah, a word on the street is the Senate is a bit more conservative than what we are. So again, I encourage people to call their legislators and to let your legislators know exactly where you are. And what it is that you want and what it is that you expect. And I appreciate that, Jonathan, because that's how you use power. That's how you use strength. But I'm telling you right now that if we get a Republican governor in there, I have quite a few other laws that I'm looking to work on. And if come January, we have a Republican governor in office, those laws likely will not be signed. They might make it through the legislature, but when they get to his desk, they're going to be vetoed.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're saying that as a practical matter, the problem is in the Senate.
Jonathan, what do you keep trying to get me to say?
Oh no! I'm not trying to get you in trouble.
Listen. I told you, word on the street.
That's all right. Just give me you. Just tell me who the targets are. I know who to shoot at.
Okay, so yes, because I was trying to avoid getting you into that because I was going to be like, who is it? I want names. But
listen. At the end of the day, it always boils down to leadership. Okay. And it's important that we have diversity in our leadership, and it's important that we have people in leadership who are able to, understand all of the issues. And what I'm telling you is that, it's important to reach out to everybody in the assembly and also the Senate. Very nice. This is a beautiful picture.
Because it really is about, like,
I want to show the people. It's a lovely picture. Tell my son that this is a nice picture.
That is a nice picture.
See, there you go.
I got a bunch of artists waiting for you to help you take it to the sky. That's for real. And they're all from right here in Newark, too. That's right.
And he's only like, how old is he?
Shout out to Rat.
That's a good picture. But
yeah,
hello?
Look like she froze a little bit.
Okay. All right. So Zaid, I will ask you for names. Like, we'll talk about.
We're very concerned about that, right? We're concerned about this in the Senate. We're concerned about down in Cranberry. Oh God, I can't call her name out right now. I'm having a singing moment, right? No problem. I'm having a singing moment, but we'll come back to that. The thing that I wanted to lift up is what Britnee said that we need to do on the grassroots side. We asked the same question, if you remember, Jonathan, what we had Senator Cryan on, right?
Right.
A law enforcement Democrat, right?
Yeah.
And Ed asked the question. So from our vantage point, what should we do? He said, call.
Right.
Call
That's
your
right.
legislators.
That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you. Call.
Brittany, let me say this. We've got a whole generation that we're trying to train in the importance of that, right? A lot of us from my generation stopped doing that years ago, right? On both sides, on the inside of the house and on the outside of the house. We got comfortable and then stop doing those kind of things. Meanwhile, the other side, let's talk radio. The late Rush Limbaugh turned AM radio into a mobilizing machine for the right wing in this country. People don't realize that. They were calling, they were doing all those things that a grassroots lobby has to do. Our community has to relearn how to do that. Protest here, grassroots lobby there. You have to do both. You have to do both. So that's the thing we're trying to, we've got a whole new generation. We're trying to train up on that. And
so
you know exactly how to do that, Baba, and you do it so well. We're
making some headway. I'm proud of what came.
Imperative that we.
And you saw what we did when the bill came before.
Yeah, no, that was great.
Right? We turned them out. We turned folks out, and they were like, "Where all these folks come from?"
And so
That's right.
And that's one of the reasons why I always love talking to you, because I always get to see really how things are done. Like you are so good at articulating the process by which you go about actually getting things done. The coalitional politics, the talking to individual people, the looking people in the eye 5 minutes before the vote, like as in arm twist. Britnee, are you there?
Yeah, and to me, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
You were frozen for a second. I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. And I got to shout out Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, and also Chairman, now the state chairman, Leroy Jones. I've learned from the best. I've had a good front row view to how you to negotiate pieces of legislation, and ultimately you let your yes be yes and your no be no.
Okay. No, and again, yeah, that specific detail. We really, in a lot of the interviews we have, we don't really get that the detail in which you go into on these bills is the reason why I really love all of the interviews that give us that extra. We know we have about 2 minutes left. We wanted to see who you were listening to in terms of him.
I'm sorry.
Say that again, John. Okay, I don't know what I'm apologizing for. I apologize.
Aww.
Okay. I love you.
Even now, using them negotiate.
He's like basically say sorry for working and having this tough. No, this little guy, he's a tough one. He's a lot like me. Yeah, he does. And it is about that time. I know we have 60 seconds left. I miss DJ Rhino. Where's DJ Rhino at?
DJ Rhino should be coming in later on.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
We'll tell him that you shouted him out.
Yeah, he would be happy you shouted him out.
100%. Oh, just real quick, I want to say, I know you always ask me who my favorite rapper is, and I always say, I am encouraging people to watch a movie that I don't know if he was a producer on it or something, but it's called Monster. Watch it. I think it's on Netflix. It's a great conversation piece to start a conversation, especially if you're raising a young Black man in an urban setting. It's something that we use to have a conversation with we're a blended family, but with our 14-year-old. So it's called Monster. So I want to tell all the parents to check it out and to watch.
I heard about it. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I got you.
For the conversation.
Yeah.
Dimitri.
Yeah, I've heard things about it, but thank you. Thank you so much again. Like we appreciate you so much. Like we appreciate you so much. So thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
All right, you too. All right, that's All Politics So Local, America's number one political radio talk show. We're going to be joined shortly by the former Vice-Chancellor of Rutgers University.
She already retired?
I believe she just retired. She might just
Marcia Brown is my heart.
But Marcia Brown, we love her. We love her a lot. Absolutely. So she should be coming in shortly. I just wanted you to talk about, just as an end cap to the conversation, Zaid. So I'm gonna ask you, who are the senators we got to call?
Oh, it's a bunch. All of them.
Okay.
All of them have to be called, right? All of them have to be called. I mean, she even though she lifted up Coughlin, right? It still has to be called.
Right.
Still have to be called, right? They need to hear our side. The other side, has carte blanche entree and access to them, right? I'm talking about the police unions, right? And they have access to press that we don't have, right? And they are the arch defenders of this thing called white male privilege. They're the arch defenders of that, right? And so all, I pardon my military language, all weapons on the table, right? One of the things that happened with our community, right? And I'm talking particularly on the left wing of the community, is that we got so disgusted with politics, political personalities and all that we backed away from key components of grassroots lobbying.
And the key components of grassroots lobbying were what you talked about before, which was simply
writing letters, calling them. Listen, in political prisoner work, when our freedom fighters get sick, one of the first things we start a long, emergency call out, and folks start calling those prisons and those overseers, have to and we can't, we let them die. It's going to be a bad look. Somebody's job might be on the line. They're really making a little noise. So, we got to watch this guy, So I'm trying to get that energy that we had to relearn, right? I'm saying the left wing of our community stopped doing that. Grassroots in our community stopped doing that some years ago. They had to relearn how to do that. One of the things that was important about Trump's sentence is that he was so terrible in representing not just a backward trend in politics, but the advance of fascism, that you started to see, out of 501c3 land, right? A space that is usually not terribly political, young folks getting political and using those vehicles, right, to actually do some things on the ground that we had gotten away from. And it made a very critical difference, particularly in Georgia, right? That's why Stacey Abrams is so important, right? And folks like her. Young Ryan Haygood, right? Ryan, Ryan had young white folks out there with us for reparations. I told them they can't be comfortable with that they got to go back in their neighborhood and talk to Aunt Heather and Uncle Bob and police chief too, But that's a space that has come out of this, that we have to do what we need to do to make that space mature in a broad-based way in our community, so we become again the force that we need to be in grassroots lobbying.
All right, cool. So we're getting ready to have Marcia Brown come on, and we're going to welcome her on All Politics Are Local. We've been wanting to have Marcia Brown on forever. We love Marcia Brown. Marcia Brown is, if it weren't for Marcia Brown, All Politics Are Local wouldn't be on the air. So I just want to come on saying that. Right?
Yeah, I remember. I was so proud of that story when it first came to me.
Marcia Brown has been Vice-Chancellor Marcia Brown, who was Vice-Chancellor at Rutgers, Newark, has been more than just an administrator in the city of Newark. She is someone who has taken care of people in the city of Newark in every iteration of the job that she had. And something tells me that even before she did, she was involved in the life of helping people within the city. Like I just want to fully say how grateful I am to have had Marcia Brown in my life, because she's helped not just with All Politics Are Local in terms of this show, but she has also helped with the debate teams all over the city.
Oh my goodness.
Right? Like she was very.
Oh my goodness.
She was very instrumental both on a high school level and a college level in getting community-wide support for debate teams, right? So the types of like accolades that the college team has won, the current coach Elijah Smith, the debate teams that I coach, right, all have to give a nod to Marcia Brown for her vision and what she did to really just get a lot of community support for the stuff we did. So that's a long introduction, not a complete introduction, but I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to those two things, because I know that she has been a fixture, has been someone who's helped students out for many years at Rutgers, University Rutgers Newark. So thank you so much for coming here. So thank you so much for allowing us to interview you, Marcia.
Yeah, that was much too long. And
I ain't even saying that. Wait till I start.
and everything is always a collaborative. We know this. So, no one, I would never assume the responsibility for anything that I've been associated with, because it's always been part of a team. I'm very grateful for that too. And the many years that you speak of, I was just thinking, I've been in Newark over 40 years. I've been either living or working in Newark for over 40 years. So, but I think I look good, right? I don't look 80.
Yes, you do.
I think you look very good.
Wow. Yes, you do not at all look. You look much younger. Absolutely.
Well, actually, it's not 80; it's 70. But still.
You could look 50 and people would not blink an eye. You could say you're in your 40s and people would be like, okay, we believe it, right? Like it's the magic of Black women genetics. Y'all don't really age. You don't age pretty much at all. So always appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's a shocker given what Black women have had to struggle with. Amina Barak and I were just talking about this the other day, because we were both remarking about how old we had become. Like, when did that happen? But yeah,
it can't sneak up on you.
So when did you come to Newark? Like, what brought you to Newark?
I'm sure that my brother will remember this, but I was in an organization called the National Organization for an American Revolution.
Yes, you were.
Talk about the left, right? And,
yes.
This was 1975. I actually came to New Jersey. The organization sent me here to create a chapter. At the time, my husband and I. And I got to Newark in 1979 because my daughter was going to the African Freedom School here. I can't remember the name of it. What was the name of that school? Oh God, it was only one African Freedom School. It's Chat. And so I remember I didn't know anyone in Newark, and my husband was in the PhD program at Rutgers Cook College in the what they call the plant pathology program. He was only the 8th Black to study this since George Washington Carver.
Wow.
And so we, when I got to Newark, somebody said you need to look up Junius Williams. So I literally was walking through the streets of Newark asking, "Do you know Junius Williams? Do you know Junius Williams?"
Really?
I ran into somebody and they said, "Oh yeah, he's right over there." And I met Junius, and we started, to working together. Actually, me, Junius, and Richard Camerari. We were working around the whole University Heights thing. But my role here was to build this chapter, right, of the National Organization for the American Revolution. And, really I was in the midst of the Black nationalist camp here. And Kabili Tayari with the National Black Independent Political Party. I came also at the time when the struggle to create a united front around the education campaign, and particularly creating a elected school board.
Right.
That was probably the biggest. I think that was one of the biggest victories that we ever had in Newark. The way that United campaign came about. I mean, you had everybody in there. The left, the right, the progressives, the elected officials, the opportunists.
Yeah, they were all there.
Everyone was inside of that. But for that moment, it created something that hadn't existed before, and it showed what a united front could do. When folks kept their eye on the sparrow, so to speak. And what was the goal? The goal was to stop the appointed school board, to create an elected school board, and then to get real people from the community on that board. And then to
democratizing education, right?
Yes. I think education was always the big struggle we've always had here. I mean, even though we struggle with public safety issues, we struggle, actually not struggle, but we have a great arts and cultural capital here. But education has always been the great struggle, the great engine that could, if you will. And it's also been the one where we've seen the most failures.
Yes.
And we've never really had a unpacking of that.
That's right.
Not really. Because one of the things we've never been able to do as a community of activists and advocates is to tell the truth. Because some of us have to say either we're sorry, some of us have to acknowledge that we had the wrong view in the long run. Some of us need to be saying we're sorry to these young children here who are going through because of decisions that were made back in that day.
Now, with some reflection on that and reflection with what happened back there with the elected board, you talked about that being so important. Just from your observations in dealing with both high school and college, did something go wrong with that? Like, what is your critique of what happened then with an elected board? Because after that, you have state takeover, you have the influx.
Absolutely.
What went wrong?
And Zaid has written poems about this, great poems. So, I mean, what went wrong is that we took our eye off the sparrow and allowed the egos of people, the ambitions of people, the corruptions of people to begin to drive. See, because if you can't keep what we have always, at least politically said was our motive operandi, which is to create the best community we could so that people could live the best lives that they could, so that they would have access. Those were the sacrifices that we, supposedly the leadership of these struggles, would be willing to make for our people, not to enable them either, but to bring them up, to train them, to educate them, to give them what they needed so that they could lead too. I mean, ultimately, that's what we needed to have happen. But I'm going to tell you, and I remember having this conversation with Bob Kervin, because when he was writing his book on Newark, I said to him, look, I hope you'll tell the truth about what went on in this campaign, because our children need to know the real history so that they don't make the same mistakes.
Exactly.
And see, we've not told that story. But the real story is this, that we allow people who had the wrong motives, who had the wrong appetites to lead. And they put their own agendas ahead of the agenda of these children.
That's right. That's right.
That's the truth. That's what happened. I mean, I could name names because I don't really care, but I'm not, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying that when that United campaign was successful in getting the elected school board, and it was amazing. We could have done a movie about this. And then we started organizing around who would be the first slate. Oh my God. Who would be the first slate of people? And that's when the first betrayal happened.
Wow. And you say the word betrayal. Like what do you mean by that?
The betrayal of the interests of our people and of our children in particular. Because there was a commitment to putting people on the right people on there, not because they happen to have a connection with somebody in the North Ward who I won't name, or because there were people who were going to get contracts who I won't name, because there were union people who were driving who would get what and where in this new, formation whose names I won't name. I mean, all of those things, that became a betrayal. So
people were pushing their own interests.
Right, or the road to betrayal. Now, the best spin I can put on this is that, Father, forgive them, for they knew not what they did. That's the best spin I can put on it. But the right spin I would put on it is that people knew exactly what they were doing. And they made those choices. And maybe they thought that, the children would not suffer. But see, if you don't have the right, your hand on the pulse of the right people in the first place, because who were you thinking about? If we're thinking about our children, what do we want? We want the best people on the board. We want the people on the board who are going to be willing to do the work to understand how to run the board.
Right.
You want the best people in the classroom, not people because they're your friends, because you like them, because they helped you get elected.
You lost the board, yes.
And so that created this whole period where our children lost so much because they had to then deal with this betrayal, which led to the takeover. I mean, everybody, want to blame, the white system for, they came in. I mean, what did you expect them to do? It's $1 billion business, the school. And so, and all Black people were running it. And we opened the gates for them to come in and do it.
And it's over 25 years to get them out. That's more than a generation.
And and thank you, because when we started this interview, I had no idea what some of the early things that you would talk about, right? And that when you're talking about your involvement in the politics of the school board election, what happened, the success of it, what happened after that? How did you get to Rutgers Newark?
Okay, so let me just say this. You remember that part in The Godfather where, Michael was.
I was just watching it a few days ago.
You remember that when Michael was having his baby baptized or whatever?
Yes.
But then,
and he was wiped out at the same time.
Right? So, I mean, in a sense, that's what happened, with the school board, right? I mean, after the school board became an elected school board, and there were certain people who sort of led that struggle, then they proceeded to put into place, in one night, let's just say, for the sake of dramatic principle, in one night they put into place, everybody that they wanted in. And I call it the big fix was in. Okay. And so those of us who were in pubs, which is another great story that got betrayed.
People United for Better Schools.
People United for Better Schools would have been the greatest vehicle to drive educational quality, excellence, and responsibility in the Newark community. Listen, in no other city in the country has there been anything like a pubs. Nowhere.
Now, what was pub? What was People United for Better Schools? What was that?
It was a grassroots movement that sprang up out of that first campaign, the United Front, to take ownership of education in our community. Right?
What was different about pubs? Like, what made it so special?
The earliest people that created pubs were people who were serious about their revolutionary intentions and the revolutionary agenda. So, Raz's dad, Amiri, and the organization he was a part of was there. Our organization was there. Individual activists, Larry Ham. Mm-hmm. A lot of great people were there in the beginning, and we had these great discussions. We would meet in the library, and we had these great discussions about what we could do. We even decided to break up by wards. So we would have a pubs South Ward, a pubs North Ward. And our first set of goals revolved around one, making sure that the people who were elected to the school board had the support that they needed to understand what they were doing, to use us as backup, when they needed. And then we would talk to people in the community about what their rights were. We surveyed them, what were the kinds of things they wanted to see happen. I mean, it was a bureau, a Politburo, if you will, for education. And I mean, I told Bob Curvin so many stories about what happened with pubs, but the end of pubs came when the people who had the big fix in realized that pubs was trying to be a responsible revolutionary organ. Mm-hmm. And when we decided, I remember we were in this big meeting, and Amiri was talking about democracy, revolutionary democracy, right, and how pubs represented that. And we were in the old Union building off of Central Avenue, I believe. And because that's where we used to meet. And we were talking about going into different wards. It was a great idea. Oh, it was a beautiful idea, because then we could reach people where they were. Right. And as soon as Amiri was standing up talking about, how revolutionary pubs could be, and all of a sudden, and this was the big fix. So you have to understand, this was planned. And that's why I'm not giving people any breaks, because this was planned. So all of a sudden, so-and-so jumps up and calls Amiri a name and hits him.
Wow.
We're all in this big, and then Amina jumps up, and says, "Oh no, you're not going to hit my husband." And pandemonium broke out. But again, this was all planned. And
okay, so
I didn't realize it at the time, but afterwards we did. I mean, and I remember Kabili telling me, "Marcia, you got to understand, this was in the works. These people planned this." So the big fight broke out, and
is this the legendary fight that everyone talks about in terms of Carl Sharif involvement?
Yes. I don't know if Carl was there that day.
That was different.
Yeah, I think that was different. Yeah, this was the Union, and there was an unholy alliance that had taken place with the Union, with these key people who took over the board in the first iteration of this elected school board. And so once this fight broke out and everybody was fumbling and jumping around, and we never had another pubs meeting again, because they declared pubs over.
Wow.
They declared pubs over, and no one, really understood. Well, what? I mean, it just caught everybody off guard.
Because of all the unnecessary drama, the public
drama, right? And the disillusionment, and the fact that because pubs was such a new organ, nothing like that had ever existed before. People took sides. So. And you have to remember, the Union hired a lot of people to work in the classroom. And so in some ways, these people's jobs were on the line, and they weren't going to come out against the teachers union. They were, that they were part of something unholy. Not everybody, of course. But I remember a meeting late night at the Robert Treat, where a certain mayor was there, certain leader of a Northward Center was there, certain people from this group I call the Big Six that actually ran the school board after the elected school board, the first slate was elected, and they were there to decide who would be the school board candidates. They were there to decide who would get jobs. They were there to decide. And I heard this with my own ears. I was right outside that door because we heard that there was going to be this meeting, and we went down to see, and it was true.
Wow.
And I mean, you get to see who zoomed who. And it really was about betrayal. So I would say over these 40 years that I've been in Newark, we've had these ups and downs, these great ups, where we've started these great campaigns and then have been sucked into our own corruptions. And in some ways, mimicking what white people have done to us. We've done to our own people.
It's the divide and conquer. It is the playing of activists. It is the way you described it. It was almost like some levels of infiltration to disillusion. Am I reading that incorrectly?
No. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's like most of the movies that we see. You infiltrate, you divide and culture. We saw divide and conquer. We saw it with the Black Panther Party.
That's right.
I mean, these are not new tactics and strategies.
Listen, I struggle with my elders on that too, because they don't like to tell the hard stories.
They don't.
Yeah.
They don't. And listen, you cannot.
No lies, claim no easy victories.
Thank you. And you can't be a leader if you can't say I was wrong.
Right.
I made a mistake. I'm sorry, because you see these children here. You see 2 generations of children now who suffer. We don't have the right to do that.
That's right.
We did not have the right. They were put in our hands. We are their elders. We're supposed to protect them. And we did not. And somebody owes for that, see? The children have been paying the price for that. But they don't owe for that. We owe for that.
Right. Wow. So
that has never been said publicly. Never. The only time it was said was when Junius had Kabili and I to that. He used to have, I think it was Ali, the Abbott Leadership Institute used to have these Saturdays.
Days of that, yes.
Right. And we came over and Kabili and I told this same story to the parents who were in the room. We said the same thing, and they were like, "Oh, we didn't know this. We didn't know this and that." I said, "Oh yeah."
Because that story really helps us understand the more recent education struggles, like the charter school, all the other stuff, getting local control back. Like, that I witnessed that second education struggle. So when you're talking about what went on before, I think that's just so helpful to understand what happened after that.
See, a lot of these kids who are in the Black Lives Matter movement too, see, they need to hear that. They need to hear these stories. They need to hear the narratives about what happened and why, because it's going to repeat itself.
Right.
I've already seen that happening in their venues, in their spaces.
Right.
Because I think that history began with them.
Right.
And it did not.
So now you have fractures in the Black Lives Matter movement. There are a lot of critiques of leadership, where money's spent. It seems like they're having these similar types of breakdowns that you are describing.
I hate to say this, but in some ways, I believe that even around, with Black Lives Matter, around George Floyd or whatever, that in some ways, white people are actually driving our struggle. And what do I mean by that? That we have not learned the lessons that put us in the driver's seat so that we keep falling for the same okie doke all the time. We need to talk to our own people. I mean, the reason why Du Bois conducted the Philadelphia study, and where they went door to door, talking to Black people to find out who they were, what were they doing, we don't even know our own people anymore. I mean, we talk about the people. Who the hell are the people? Who are they now? we are not some united front. We're not.
Now, with these struggles that you've been in, the movements that you've been into, you ended up doing a lot of really good work for the community at Rutgers, and rose up in there to really help out a lot of people, right? Like I benefited from what you did multiple times, and just growing up. Where is that transition between?
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know if you remember, Zaid, you might remember the Council on Higher Education in Newark. They call it CHIN.
Yes.
So when after I got out of law school, you know, the whole idea was to build this legal unit that would be the the legal front for our people. Although the campaign, the organizations were so divided and so just everywhere. I mean, you got pubs over here, you have the National Independent Political Party over here, you got Mary and whatever they were doing. Everybody was just scattered. And so I met there's this saying about the right time, place. Kabila used to say this all the time: time, place, and circumstance. So time, place, and circumstance put me at the vortex of this thing called CHIN, and I met what was his name? Norman Samuels, who was the chancellor at Rutgers Newark, and also the guy who was the head of UMD&J. And so Norman asked me if I would actually asked me if I would work with them to create something at Rutgers Newark. At the time, I had my own law firm. I was in a law firm with 4 other Black women. And I didn't come in at the moment, but I did start working with CHIN. That's where I met Linda Carter. We became friends. We started doing so. Linda was already.
Can you tell me what year this is? Like what year pubs ended and what you're doing?
I realize I'm getting old. I can't remember these years, but this would have been around. So the whole pub saga and the educational front went from 1974-5 to 1990s, right? Okay. So in 1994, I graduated from law school. And in 1995 to 1997, I'm working with this law firm that we had. It was on Market Street. And then when Norman asked me to come, so I came to Rutgers. I did come. He asked me to work with him. And I came in 1997. Okay. And I worked with him and in the law school. And so I never left. I've been there ever since. Because, and again, time, place, and circumstance. So Norman was basically saying, you could do whatever you want to do. Just come up with a vision. And that's when we started.
I got to jump in it because that, one of the things that we love to see is when people go through their own transformations. It was a very different Norman Samuels when I was a student.
Yes, it was. Yes. No, it definitely was.
We turned his behind out, and he went through his own.
Absolutely. He
reassessed who the hell he was.
He sure did it.
And Marcia's a product. Marcia's coming in was huge to that.
He did. And you know what, Zaid? People didn't know that. See, Norman was, the reason why he was like that before is because he was a conservative Israeli politician.
Yes, he was.
I mean, I believe Norman had been in the Mossad. Mm-hmm. But in any case, after the rebellion, after blacks took over Conklin Hall, and Norman was, I think he was just shocked into some kind of, realization that they needed the.
We got him on the anti-apartheid front.
Yes. Yeah.
That's when he started beginning to make the turn. He just got embarrassed about trying to defend apartheid.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. That, and plus you remember the two, there were also 2 very progressive people in the law school. I forget the guy's name. They were white, but they were Presbyterian. And so they had also pushed Norman to have this platform to bring Black people from Newark into the law school. Also poor Black people. So, and they created what's called the minority.
I'm still on the waiting list for the law school. I'm still waiting. Been waiting since 1983.
Not the law school, it's the graduate school.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
But we got a new sister now running SASC, and that other chick, she gone. So you might have an opportunity here.
Well, Marcia,
you should send me your stuff again before I leave. I'll do whatever I can.
And Marcia, I would say that you might not remember this at all. I doubt if you remember this at all, but you actually accepted me into Rutgers Law School, and I deferred for a year and decided to stay in teaching. But you welcomed me into Rutgers Law School. And I ended up deferring for a year, and then I ended up just enjoying what I do in terms of teaching, and decided not to go the law school route. But there was a close decision, right? And your name was up in that too. So that's the third time in my life that you've affected something that I was a part of. Because I very easily there could have been a couple of decisions away from not having as much fun coaching debate to just going to law school. But you were, I believe, dean of admissions.
Yeah, I was dean of the MSP program. Yeah.
Okay.
The very program.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, but the dean of admissions had the final say. But the thing that I remember, my mentor Jimmy Boggs used to always say,
I want you to talk about Jimmy. I was trying to save that. But
okay.
We got to talk about Jimmy and Grace.
We'll save Jimmy. But I will say that when I came into the law school, I was able to say to Norman, look, I'm not coming here looking for a job. I came here because maybe our politics can be synchronous, So because my thing is, let's get this university inside of Newark, and not just in Newark, but of Newark. And he accepted that. I'm not saying that it wasn't a struggle over those years to do what we did, because they only had one black in the chancellor's office until Nancy Cantor came.
Wow. So wait, there was only one black person in the chancellor's office until.
Yeah, because that was this job. Before I had it, James Ramsey had it.
That's right. I miss
wow.
Ramsey well.
Yeah, I think that I see Larry Ham saying this is the first discussion of pubs
in a long time. That's right.
But that's because they don't let me in the room, Larry.
We were young and ex-colored.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. Vicky Wood could contribute there. Yes.
Absolutely.
Vicky's contributing.
Wow.
Yes.
So Malcolm Talbot and Dean Willard Heckle.
There you go.
There you go. My brain, I don't have that. I don't have the same recall as I used to have. Yeah. But
yes. Oh God. You don't
want to bring up the awesome responsibilities of revolutionary leadership, because that was the book that we grew up on with Jimmy. I mean, all of it, and like I said, Jimmy sent us all around the country.
She's talking about the great James Boggs, a great radical black theoretician out of Detroit.
Yeah,
right? Him and Grace Boggs, and the question that I wanted to ask, right, and I have to, I want to the thing that I think Marcia most about, because I don't know if you remember how I met you. Library, we did a lot in that library.
We had the Urban Voices, right? Wasn't it?
Right. First time Marcia read there's this piece by the late great Louis Reyes Rivera.
Oh yes. Oh my God.
On Malcolm's assassination, right?
Yeah.
And she performed it. I said, who the hell is this badass sister killing this poem on Malcolm? Right? Right? Shortly after that, within that same group, I raised the question about Asada's book coming out.
Yes, right? Yes.
We gotta do the first book party for Assad as a matter of principle, to stand up to these backwards forces in the state that are still coming after her, right? Almost all of them was scared to death. There wasn't no parts of that.
That's true.
It was only Marcia Brown and Sandra West that rolled with me to get that book party.
Wow.
We sure did. And remember we did the reenactment of her. We did the reenactment of Asada's closing argument in her trial. And her aunt came
Evelyn
I,
Williams.
I did the reading on her. I did Asada's reading, and then we had simulated the court case. And her aunt came, or maybe it was her aunt who did it. I can't remember. But we did this assimilation of Asada thing. And that came out of what you were just talking about now at the library. Because, you know, the library. At the library.
It reverberated from Newark all the way to Cuba. I mean, you know, it was, I mean, the other side, of course, was upset. The state police had James Brown all nervous and kind of, I said, James, send him my way. I did it. He said, okay. It was crazy, but it was important and it was good and it was done.
It was.
But I wanted to get it at James and Grace for another reason, right? Because one of the things that has come up in this crazy hysteria that Trump created aimed at Asian Americans is relifting the question of radical Afro-Asian solidarity, right? Yeah. And James and Grace were also beacons in that. So just to give a few words about who they were, because they're unsung.
Yeah,
in our tradition.
They really are unsung. I mean, Jimmy and Grace, Jimmy even more than Grace, because at the end, after Jimmy died, Grace became sort of a call celebrity with Bill Moyer. He, Bill Moyers considered himself somewhat on the left. And he, in his show, he had Grace on many times to talk about revolution and evolution in the 20th century. And see, I'm gonna talk about some of the contradictions in a minute. My colleagues are probably going to get pissed at me, but
well, there always contradictions, baby.
We definitely you are someone we definitely are gonna have back, because I wonder, there's so much stuff that we want to really talk about, right? Like, and we haven't even gotten into, right? Like we haven't even really touched on the whole stuff that you did at Rutgers a lot, right? Like, so I definitely am gonna want to have you back so that we can.
I'm sorry, because don't apologize. I'm like old, and I feel like we got to tell these young people everything we know.
You do, and that is necessary.
And all of us as elders are not comfortable doing that.
No, that's true.
And we need to deal with that.
And so Marcia, I definitely am gonna want to have you back to really go into a lot of these lessons that you're talking about, because I learned so much just in the first half an hour. I learned a lot, right? And I didn't expect to come in with any of this. I thought we were going to spend most of the time talking about different stuff you did as an administrator, et cetera. And there's an entire life that you had before Rutgers that, in terms of activism in Newark, that I'm just learning so much from. So.
Yeah, I just would say I was underground at Rutgers. I mean, the real struggle was out there in the community, right? So I was glad I was at Rutgers. I 22 years, I'm retiring at the end of July. And I'm deeply grateful for being there. Deeply, deeply grateful because that gave us a platform to work on notions of social mobility and racial equity. And Nancy Cantor was was the driving force on that, because now the whole cabinet, when I came in and I was the only Black after James Ramsey, now Nancy's cabinet is 99% Black.
Wow.
And then everybody else, you're talking about 12, 14, 17 people. The deans, there's not one white dean. When I came there, all the deans were white and Jewish. There's not one white dean. I mean, there's a story to be told at Rutgers, and I'd like to come back and tell it, because she has a lot to do with it.
Rutgers, Newark, the northern urban campus. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like before, I remember when I was a kid, I used to think that Rutgers, Newark didn't really want people from Newark there. Now it seems the opposite, right?
We fought for tooth and nail all for years.
And let me end on this note. Every kid who comes to every young person, let me stop saying kid, every young person who comes to Rutgers, Newark from a household of $65,000 or less goes free. 4 years, they go free because we pay everything that they don't get from federal and state. We pay the last dollar. And so these young people now have an opportunity. They go to college free. And they also built a honors college just for young people who are interested in social justice and global affairs. 400 students are in this college right now. Nancy built it principally for Black and brown people. I mean, the Rutgers story has to be told.
No, I agree. I mean, I am changing the way that I advise kids, like in high school kids, in terms of where to apply. I'm like, you need to apply to Rutgers Newark, and I go over why. I go over, no, Rutgers Newark now has a real commitment to Black and brown kids from Newark, right? And to go and not go into $100,000 of debt and any of that other stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I definitely want to have you back to talk about those stories and others of equity, because you did that when you were in the law school. You've done that you've done that now. You did that, like, there's every iteration of your work at Rutgers that you did to open the door for Black and brown people, like, period, right? Like, there is no job that you've had many different jobs at Rutgers, and every single one of them, you've opened the door. You've made sure that you've opened the door for the community, and you've allowed us in. Like, you've done that for me. You've done that for Ed. You've done that for All Politics Are Local. You've done that for my students. You've done that for my debaters. Like, there are all sorts of areas of my life that and I'm just talking about in your position at Rutgers, have opened the door and made things easier for so many kids, for so many people over a generation, right? For kids who were your daughter's age and younger, right? Like, so you really have brought a generation along with you as much as you could. And I wanted to, just really appreciate you for that.
Well, I just want to say two things in closing. One is that, as Jimmy used to tell us all the time, you don't get kudos for what you ought to do. Maybe you get them for extra if you've done extra, but if this is what you ought to do. This is what you owe. People have been honoring themselves in Newark for 40, 50 years for doing stuff they ought to do, for what they ought to. And we come from the ought to generation. And then the second thing I would say is, I'm old. This is past my bedtime. So next time when y'all have me on here, it better be at 6:00 in the evening or something like that.
Okay, we will definitely try for that. But we are going to have you back, and we're going to have you back within the next month or so. So I'm going to be calling you up to have you back to talk about this. And yeah, we'll do it at an earlier hour for you.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right,
thank you so much. I love Marcia Brown, right? Like, she is really a unsung hero inside of Newark, and I didn't really even know about a lot of those other stories that happened, in the 80s, and I didn't know she was involved in all that.
That caught me out there too, John. I can't lie. It was good hearing the backstory. It was almost like if this was a movie, she gave you the prequel. Like, remember how Star Wars gave you the prequel after the trilogy? Like, she just gave us that whole backstory to, like you said, to make it help us understand what's going on now and how it is. You know what I mean? So I definitely appreciated that.
Because I was involved in all of the I was around for all of the charter school fights and getting local control and Cami and Surf and All Politics Are Local were part of that, right? Well, we had Cami Anderson on here a few times. We've had that charter school debate and activists who are fighting back and forth on this, going back to 2010, right? Yeah. So when she brought all that stuff out in terms of all that history there, I appreciated that a lot.
Yeah.
I did. So DJ Rhino, man, what's going on in the state of hip hop, my brother?
Cracking, beloved.
First off, I gotta ask, where's the queen? What happened to the queen of the show? Where's Donna?
I'm trying to find out. I reached out to her. I was surprised that she's not.
Yeah, she couldn't make it this week, but she sends her love.
Okay.
All right, because usually, I need her. She's usually the one to make some kind of crack on my shirt.
Yes, and now
anniversary, right?
Jackson.
Yeah, so exactly. We lost Mike on this day back in 2009, right?
Yeah,
I remember the day.
Yeah, I remember too, man. It was crazy. I was at work. I used to work for my father for his business. He used to sell music to like restaurants and different businesses and stuff. And I used to help him with the phone sales. And I remember the TV was on, and the report came up. And I think my wife and I called each other from wherever we were at that time. I think she was at her job or whatever. And I was stuck, man. And I remember walking, because I was in New York, and I remember just walking the streets of New York and just how solemn everything felt. like everybody felt that. You know what I'm saying? Everybody felt the loss of Michael Jackson. It was like, what just happened just in the world? You know what I'm saying? Like, what just happened right now? You know? It was that was a crazy day, man. That was a crazy day.
Yeah, we felt for that one. That one we felt for a while.
Yeah,
felt for a while, and I think it was
still
first,
feel it, man. When this music comes on, you still feel it. It's like, wow, man, he's gone.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it was the first big loss of our generation, right? Like big like that. I don't mean I don't mean like Biggie and Tupac in terms of young people who died too young. Right. I mean someone that we grew up with our entire life, and we saw all the iterations of, and we thought he was like he would never. It was bigger than life. We didn't think he would die, like not like that. Nah. We thought maybe as an old man, like we see pictures of Michael Jackson as an old man and his plastic surgery.
Yeah, we thought we'd be talking about the days where he's not dancing no more and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
he's dancing on a cane, right? He's trying to make it work with a cane. He's doing a little Dick Van Dyke, right? You're like he's like 99 and tried to dance, you know, like last year for Mary Poppins. We thought we'd see Michael maybe like that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe having to wear a mask.
You know, this is a political hip hop show, but you know, we talking about Michael Jackson, but you know, hip hop. I mean, Michael Jackson is related to hip hop. You know what I'm saying? There's a relationship between Michael Jackson and hip hop. For one, I mean, the brother used to pop, lock, do the robot, and moonwalk. That was all part of the breakdancing. You know what I'm saying?
He was out
doing that. And then you got to remember, Michael Jackson also used to beatbox. He used to do the human beatbox. Like during the time when he was growing his solo career, he would do the beatbox to create rhythms for the songs on his albums. You know what I'm saying? He would create the rhythms with his mouth, and he was sharp and precise. I mean, if Michael Jackson was on stage with Dougie Fresh, I think they'd give each other a run for their money, man, because. Man, Mike was nice with it. He was precise with the rhythm. He would catch all of the little percussion. You could hear it all in his mouth. All of the little percussion and stuff that he was doing.
Man in the Mirror, right? That's the one that jumps out at me right now, where he did a lot of that. Like, and you know, however, I'm not gonna even try to imitate it. But just like how the sounds that he made that were just like, it's drama. This is my sounds are drama. Man in the mirror, you know, like
Mike was no joke, man. You know, he was definitely in tune. You know what I'm saying? And then you know he had a song with Biggie. He did a song with Jay-Z. You know what I'm saying? It was all right before he passed too. You know what I'm saying? So Mike was definitely hip hop connected. You know what I'm saying? And I think if he had more freedom, because you know Mike had a lot of people behind him business wise and as far as you know his publicity and stuff like that, so they wasn't going to let him go too far. But you know, I think if Mike had more freedoms, he probably would have been even more connected to hip hop and would have done a lot more with a lot more artists. You know what I'm saying? I could see Michael Jackson doing something with you know Chuck D and Public Enemy, or you know somebody, you know what I mean? Tribe Called.
I can see him just producing, right? I can see him producing or funding or like having a label or like at a certain point when they get into the entrepreneurial side and they want to make a statement. Because Michael Jackson was kind of angry toward the end of his life, and he was just doing stuff just to like
all that industry stuff, man, with the contracts and he was pissed off.
Right, and that's above the stuff he did when we bought the Beatles publishing. Right under Paul McCartney's nose.
Statement
Paul McCartney and him were talking about
did not deal with.
Right. Paul McCartney was like, yo, Michael, like on Say, or The Girl Is Mine or whatever. You know, it was like, yo, I'm about to buy all the Beatles publishing. And Michael was like, you about to buy the Beatles publishing? Oh, I think I might beat you to it. And he beat him to it. And apparently they didn't really talk much after that. They weren't really cool.
So it wasn't The Girl Is Mine, it was the
publishing's mine. Your songs is mine, right? Yeah. And poetically, just black people have been getting ripped off in music for so many years, right? To have Michael Jackson just buy the Beatles publishing, you're like,
the fact that that's right, the white men now had to go to this young brother, you know, with his own black way, you know, for their top dogs music,
right?
That drove them crazy.
Right, Paul
the undercurrent of that in the industry is yet to be told. That's a story that needs to be told. White folks had a serious, they could not deal with that.
All right, Paul McCartney talked about having to ask Michael Jackson for a raise, right?
Yeah.
On publishing stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think he would have been doing a lot of things that were subversive in that way, because toward the end of his life, he just kept getting angrier and angrier. People were accusing him of stuff. He was just getting blasted all over. And he just, you know, all I want to say is that They Don't Really Care About Us was the song that he made. That was like, you know,
Oh my God.
Even the last message that he put out, what was it called? This is it. Like, this was it. He was done. You know what I mean?
Yes.
This was it. You know, that was his
That's
last
cool.
message.
Enjoy.
That was his last message. Another anniversary, though, also to celebrate is
Reasonable Doubt?
Reasonable Doubt. Yes, Reasonable Doubt. That came out back in '96, man. That joint had Can't Knock the Hustle, Cannot Live, Ain't No End. What else was on there? 22 Twos, Cashmere Thoughts. Oh man, this brother had so many. Feeling It. He had a lot of great songs on that album. That whole album was just classic. Oh, and my favorite, Politics as Usual.
Yep.
Politics as Usual, man. I used to play that on the show when we were in the studio. Yeah, man. And also, speaking of Reasonable Doubt, though, there's a lawsuit going on where Jay-Z is suing Dame Dash.
Wow.
Over the sales of Reasonable Doubt. He's trying to. What it is, Dame Dash was trying to turn Reasonable Doubt into an NFT. And if you know about the NFT, you know about that, the non-fungible token.
Wait, so he was going to try to make.
He was trying to turn Reasonable Doubt into an NFT, and he was trying to sell it as that.
But how can you sell? How can you make it in an NFT? And that's what Jay-Z is suing about.
Yeah,
in a way that this is a product of his.
Right.
You can't make it into something that is one of a kind,
right?
Because it was never meant to be made as one of a kind, and that was never in any contracts that we talked about.
Right. And so Jay-Z and Rockefeller right now are suing Dame Dash. And I think the photographer, the guy that did the photography for the album cover, is also part of this lawsuit because I think he was a part of the whole thing with Dame Dash.
Right, because the images would also be part of the NFT.
Exactly.
And it's like, yo, we didn't sign up for that. How are you claiming that you have these rights when you don't have these rights? They must not really be friends at all.
Yeah. So I don't think they're gonna be patching it up anytime soon.
Yeah, Dame, that was your man's. Like, what's happening?
Yeah. So
he's gonna get together with Kanye before that.
Yeah. Also, the sister that I was telling y'all about last week, Mumu Fresh, she just dropped an album called Queen of Culture. It's a great album. The standout.
I put it on my page.
Yeah, some of the standout cuts mainly are the ones that were in that mini movie that I gave y'all the link to last week. That had a song called Work and a song called Rap God. There's another song on there called North Star with a brother named D Smoke. I don't know if you guys remember the Netflix series called Rhythm and Flow. This was the brother that won the show. She did a song with him called North Star, and I think there's a video for it also. But check out the album. It's called Queen of Culture, and it's really good, man. Mumu
Fresh, Queen of Culture. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, check that out. Also, one last thing, Jim Jones from Dipset. If y'all remember Jim Jones from Dipset, and if y'all ever heard of Conway from the new conglomerate called Griselda from Buffalo, that's Westside Gun, Conway the Machine, and Benny the Butcher. Well, Conway the Machine and Jim Jones, who are actually real cool, they're kind of like doing a not a versus, but they're doing a battle, but they're doing the old school style where instead of battling each other or doing something crazy, what they're going to do is do a song together. But what they're doing is they're just going at it in the verses. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So they're going to put out I'm not sure when the song's coming out, when they're recording it, but this is definitely in the works between Jim Jones and Conway from Griselda out in Buffalo. They're going to do a song where they're going at it. So, but the whole thing is the listeners have to decide who had the hottest verse.
Oh, and that's cool. And that's something that I think that is a good way to do these things, because it's like it's on one song.
Yeah.
It's played. And the level of beef is artistry, right?
Right.
At that point, it's just who has the best flow, who has the best verse, who has,
Exactly.
like, it is not about like it. It really gets back to hip hop, right?
Yeah, exactly, and that's why they said in the article that I read, Jim Jones was saying that this is the old school way in doing it, because if anybody remembers, I'm an old head when it comes to the hip hop. Back in the day when Roxanne Shante and Sparky D from Brooklyn used to go at it, they actually did a record together also, and they did it the same way. It was, they were battling each other and saying some wild stuff on the record, going at each other, but that was the way they did it. They put it on in one song on wax, and the listeners just had to decide who beat who.
Right.
Yeah. So
and that's cool. We got about a minute left. What anything else that you, Zaid, have to say?
That's it for me, man. Just what I was gonna just shoot out there. Check for me. Anybody that wants to check for me, DJ. If you want to see me, hear me, check for me tomorrow, 3 p.m. on twitch.tv/Rhino CMZ. It's called the Saturday Shake Up. I do it every Saturday at 3 p.m. Get on there from 3 to 6, and I just throw down. Do my.
Hey, Rhino, can you give us that again? Because people first time.
Yeah, that's twitch.tv/Rhino CMZ.
All right.
That's at 3 p.m. The Saturday Shake Up. CMZ at 3.
Put it on the page.
Yep.
All right. Sounds good. All right. And Zaid, anything else? Anything that
July 3rd is the 39th anniversary of Mumia's conviction and death sentence. We're going to shake up Philly, and we're dedicating that day also to Consuela Africa. Consuela just died. It was one of her daughters whose remains had been moved around secretly between these universities, and that killed her.
Wow.
Straight up, that killed Consuela. You know. So and I want to bring some folks on to deal with that.
Right.
So we'll talk about that for the next week or two. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, especially University of Pennsylvania and another university
and Princeton.
And Princeton. University of Penn, 2 Ivy League universities had the remains of dead Black children who were murdered by a bomb on a house in 1984, right? In terms of move, right? One of the most disgraceful chapters of policing in American history, dropping a bomb on a civilian house, murdering kids who are inside.
And they scared of civilian review boards. Pigs,
right. And they're scared of a civilian review board. Please. Right. Good way to end this. All right. We are past time. This is another week. All politics are local. America's
Peace, Donna, wherever you at.
Right on, baby. Miss you, man.
Radio talk show. Yes, Donna. Shout out to you. Shout out to Ed. Thank our guest for coming on tonight. The disciples, Britnee, Timberlake, Assemblywoman. We love you on All Politics Are Local. You are the legislation, the way you talk about it, the way you communicate it. We are fans of what you do. Marcia Brown, love you. Love what you did for me personally.
I love that. Love that sister.
All Politics Are Local. This was a great show, and we will see you again next week.